and webinar today. We are recording, so there are some protocols as we go through. I'd like to welcome you all here today. My name is Barry, so I'll be moderating today. Thank you everyone for participating. It's great to see a great turnout. We had about 30 in the room yesterday, and I think we've got a few more to come here this morning. I'm going to take you through the rules of engagement. So just quickly, because like I said, we've got on-site, we've got webinar, and we're recording. We'll be starting on time every time. We may finish a couple of sessions a little bit early, but we will be starting on the dot so that we can kick off the webinar as per the scheduled agenda. I'm going to ask everyone to respect the protocols today. Yesterday, we had some really enthusiastic guys in the room who were having some chats amongst themselves, which is fantastic, but please try to keep it down because it does impact the recording, it does impact the presentation, and on top of that, it does interrupt some of the other people who are trying to learn as well. The good news is we've got a mute button for the webinar, so we can't hear all the discussions in the background in the webinar, but also for webinar participants, we have a little function in the control panel of the webinar that allows you to raise your hand and then type in a question or notice. So questions will be taken at the question on notice session at the end of each topic. Please, therefore, everybody, write down your questions. As we're going through, please write down your questions. Don't forget anything. If you've got suggestions, please write down your suggestions as well, and we'll take them at the appropriate time. Mark and I will be monitoring the webinar. So if there's any issues, quality of audio, things like that, we'll be able to see you typing in those questions or comments, and we'll try to help you from our side. There is a little bit of a lag between changing over some of the streams, and certainly there's a little bit of a lag on the webinar side with the screen sharing, so I ask for everyone's patience in advance. So what I'd like to do now is quickly introduce the people we've got here. So Matt, if you'll jump to the next slide, please. So firstly, let me introduce you to Matt Bird. Matt is the CEO of Formitize. Matt, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And Phil Burge, who's the head of client activations. Phil's wandering around today during the sessions on site to help you if you have any problems with the desktop or with any of your devices. We also have Mark here today from Jim's group. He's in Infotech. He's a clever bloke amongst us. So if there are ever any IT issues, he's the guy to help us solve them. And Joel might be joining us as well today. He's one of the other power users from Jim's group. If you jump to the agenda, I'll just quickly turn off the lights. So the agenda today, we'll jump into basics straight away. We'll go through the setup of Formitize and the settings, and then if there are any questions, we'll take questions on notice. So again, webinar participants, please type in your questions. Feel free to raise your hand in the control panel. We have received questions in advance. If we've got time, we'll go through those as well, and we'll be taking questions from the floor at the end of each session. The second session before morning tea will be client data imports and clients. If you just jump back, please, Matt, to that previous slide. And again, related to clients, we'll be taking questions on notice, and that'll be happening about 10:20 before morning tea break. We'll have a 30-minute break between 10:30 and 11, we'll be firing up the webinar again at 11 a.m. So I ask everyone to be back on time. At 11 a.m. we'll be talking about leads, and then we'll be going into questions on notice again for leads. And then after that we'll be having a blank screen.
Sorry.
And then after that we'll be going into quotations, and then we'll break for lunch at 12:30. So 12:30 to 1:30 we'll have a break. Back on time at 1:30, a webinar and on-site kickoff again. At 1:30, next slide please, Matt. At 1:30 we'll be kicking off scheduling and jobs. Now this was quite an intense session yesterday. It may go over a little bit, so if we have to take up a little bit of time of the break, we'll do that again today. We'll be doing invoicing before afternoon tea, and again questions on notice. After afternoon tea, we'll be going into 3 key areas. The first one is accounting packages, so Xero, the link to MyOb that's coming up at the end of the year, and QuickBooks. Then we'll be talking about enhancements. There are a whole raft of releases coming up before the end of the year. Matt will take you through that. And then we'll be talking a little bit about support structure. Hope that's as clear as mud. We'll be closing on the dots at 5 o'clock. Okay, so key points to remember. Respect the protocols in terms of keeping the noise down. Questions on notice during questions on notice sessions. Okay? Without any more ado, I'll hand over to Matt.
Great, Matt.
Yes.
Please make sure everyone has got their name, they're logged into their account. Up the top it should have your name. Or if you're using a demo account, it might say Michael or Matt. If you're not logged into your account, let me know.
Put your hand up if you're not logged into your account.
You've got your own.
Okay, Phil will help you as we go around. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Barry. Thanks, everybody, for coming today, and for everybody online that's taking time out of their day to have a look at Formitize. I guess you can probably imagine that it was quite a challenge to work with gyms in terms of there's 45 different divisions working 3,700 different small businesses and larger businesses, all the franchises who've got different ideas. Lots of people that are very happy with their existing software already, the Jim's Jobs and the Jimbo app. So it's been an interesting time to bring across and start migrating those that want to come across to Formitize. And we've been working very closely with a lot of the divisional heads and of course all of the Infotech team to try and make the process as smooth and as clean as possible. We're not saying for a second that we're there, okay? There's no doubt that there's improvements that we can do. Mainly because we're not Jimbo and we're not Jim's Jobs, but we need to try and work as closely with those that are used to Jimbo and Jimbo's Jobs and make that process and that functionality as similar as possible, while hopefully also bringing in all the benefits of what we can add to the table as well. So today we're going to move through a lot of the system in a fair bit of detail. I think one thing to remember is that it does probably way more than what most of you need, okay? It doesn't mean that you need to use all of the features. So we've tried to build it in a way that it's flexible enough that you only use what you want to use, okay? And you can ignore the parts that you don't need to use until a time might come in the future where you'd like to add that in, and then it's there waiting for you, okay? So when you approach it, we're going to go through it in a fair bit of detail today, but when you approach it for yourself, narrow it down to what you need to make it work effectively for you today, all right? And then as time goes by, investigate the other parts of it and see how you can use those as well. I think it's really important because we work with, our largest client is over 2,000 users. We work with government agencies, state governments and councils, thousands of small businesses and medium businesses right around the world. So how do we make it specific for you when you're out in the field using it? And that's our challenge, okay? Because it's important that it's reliable, it's important that it's easy to use, and it's important that it does job for you, especially if you're the one-man band out in the field listening all day, every day. So we're going to take you through getting the account set up in the first place, and then move through the different ways that it can be used. Essentially, there's two sides to Formitize. There's the management portal, which we've got on this now, and it's just a secure website. It's like logging into your bank account website, all right? You can do it from anywhere in the world, and you've got access to everything. Every single form and report and invoice and quote that's going through the system is all available here to search. It also does a lot more. Now, we're not going to cover too much off about all the other stuff it does. Today, we're going to really focus on the business activity of how you're going to run your business day to day, particularly in the app. When I say a lot more, we have a whole mobile form solution. So for industries like pest control, who might have 15 different reports that are legally compliant, etc. Sorry, I'm just updating this for the people at home. Then an inspector can arrive on site, open up the right form for that job, complete it in half an hour or an hour, whatever it might be, take the photos where they're prompted, fill in use voice to text, fill in the comments, add others, and produce a complete pre-purchase report emailed instantly to the client and to the estate agent, to the lawyer. That sort of complex reporting is in addition to the normal job management stuff. All right, so let's get into the settings. When you first log into the account, if you go to Settings in the top menu bar, and then CRM settings. And it's the CRM where all of the day-to-day business activities going on. CRM just means Customer Relationship Management System or Customer Database, basically, and it's where all of the other activities going on as well. Your account will automatically open up. So I click CRM in the top left-hand corner, and then Settings, CRM Settings, okay? And it automatically defaults to invoicing. So this is where we're going to set up the invoice settings. All right. Now the first one is accounting software. Now if you are with Xero already, then we have a very powerful two-way integration with Xero. And what that means is that Xero and Formitize are talking to each other all the time, and they're updating one another all the time. So if you create an invoice in Formitize, it will sync to Xero. If you create a contact in Xero or add a line item in Xero, it'll update in Formitize. Backwards and forwards, two-way sync. We'll show you the benefits of that later. We are in full development of adding MYOB and QuickBooks Online into the solution, so we'll come back to that later, just to give you an update on that. Invoice status, very quickly, because you can create recurring jobs with Formitize, you might be creating the next 24 months worth of recurring jobs, and you can automatically attach an invoice to those jobs as they're being created. So the next status determines whether you want the invoice to be created automatically or to actually only be created when the job is completed. And we'll come back to the reasons for that later. Invoice settings, if there's a draft invoice, do you want the draft invoices to go straight to Xero or not? It's purely fairly simple. The remittance payment detail section, at the bottom of most invoices, there's a section that you can cut off, and the customer can cut off and write out their check and send it back with the check. That's what the remittance payment section is. A lot of people want to keep it on there. A lot of people don't want it anymore, so that's just an option to show that remittance advice or not. The next one, default invoice payment terms. So how quickly do you want to get paid? That will populate into the invoicing detail all the way through. It is the default, so you can override it on a case-by-case basis if you've got you'd rather be paid up front by some customers or on 30 days with others, and you can just adjust it on a client basis, but it's there as the default. The next one is the invoice email. So it's the content of the email that goes out with your invoice, and you're able to adjust that. And at the bottom is the invoice payment terms and conditions. Now, importantly, that's also where you put your bank account details for EFT transfer, okay? We get asked quite often where that should go, and that's where it goes. Underneath that is the invoice reminders. Now, I'll get into reminders and updates later, but the system will automatically chase your outstanding invoices for you if you want it to. You can have as many updates and reminders as you want to. They can get harsher as the days go by, and you can send those reminders by email, text, and letter, and you can also create internal tasks. Okay, so that's the first major setting, and I guess regardless of how you're using the system, you want to get your invoicing right. So just spend a few minutes getting that one right. We'll move very quickly across the tabs now with your quote. It's a very similar scenario to invoices. There's just the same sorts of things that you want to get going. I didn't touch on the prefix number, but you can decide what number you want the quotes to start from in Formitize. So it might be when your current quote book finishes the numbering, you want the next one to start with us from that number. The title, terms and conditions, the quote summary. So you can put as much detail in those terms and conditions as you want to. Again, in the November release, we're adding the ability to add attachments to quotes and invoices as well. So if you've got standard documents or 5-page terms and conditions for building inspectors, you might want to send out the agreements with the quotation, so that can be done. There's a lot of marketing material you can send with an invoice, for example. So there are attachments that are coming in the next release that you can add. In the meantime, you can add as many terms and conditions into those quote terms and conditions as you want to, and the summary. Underneath is the quote email. Again, that's just the content of the email that goes out with the quote. Your expiry period for quotes, and that will move a quote from valid to expired all the way through the system based on the number of days that you put in that setting. And then there's quote reminders as well, which again we'll touch on later, just enabling you to automatically follow up any quotes that you've done. Okay, quotes, moving across purchases. Won't touch too much on that, it's just setting the purchase order numbers when you're buying stock or equipment or business expenses through the account. Next one is accounts. This is where you set up basically your profit and loss accounts. Now, if you're using Xero, again, all of this will be populated for you, all right? It'll just pull everything in from Xero. You won't need to touch it. If you're not, then you can add new accounts using the green button on the right-hand side and set those up. If you're having any trouble with it, speak to your bookkeeper or your accountant or contact support, but hopefully you'll get your head around that fairly quickly. Next one across is tax. When you register, the system should automatically detect your country and should automatically set up your tax code. So you shouldn't need to touch that, but you can go in and adjust anything that you need to. If you're not GST registered or VAT registered, then you can adjust the tax rates to 0 using this page. Items, next one along. These are your line items for both purchases and sales, okay? So for your invoice line items, you can add them here. There's other places that you can add them, but this is the central place to add them. If I click on new item in the right-hand corner, you can enter a code, give it a name. If you've got the option for that item to be something that you both purchase and sell, or one or the other. So a mowing guy might buy mulch, for example, at a certain price and sell it at a certain price. So you can add both of those in. Other things are just suppliers or items that you sell. So that's items. Pipeline stages. Okay, so we do have in the system what we call a sales pipeline to manage leads. Now, for most of you in the mowing and so on, it's probably not necessary. You probably don't even need to think about it. For others, where there's quite an extended sales process from start to finish, and one of the examples that came up yesterday is when franchisors are talking to and liaising with potential franchisees, they take them through a fairly regimented process, and they move through a stage to finally become franchisees. So you can set up the pipeline stages here, and it applies percentages and things to work out the real value of your sales pipeline. I'm going to cover it really quickly now, but we'll come back and look at this in more detail later. But this is where you set them up, the different stages of the pipeline on the right, and then you apply a percentage likelihood of success. So as the sale moves, or the potential sale moves through the pipeline, that percentage is applied to it. Like I say, for most of you, don't need to worry about it. SMS. Now, I know the previous systems haven't had the sort of SMS capability, or I don't think they have. Formitize does. So in most communications, updates, job status updates, late arrival notifications, that sort of thing, the SMS functionality is there. There is a cost for it because it's an additional feature. It costs 8 cents per text. And the way that it works is you set up, put in a payment up front, and then if you want to, a top-up balance so that it automatically pops up when it gets to a certain figure. Okay? It's up to you. You don't need to use it, but it is there and available if you want to. Emails, that's just where you set up your email footer. Custom variables. Now, when you set up the CRM, without touching it, it will automatically have all of the standard business fields in there that most people collect from their customer, all right? The billing name, the primary contact, their mobile, their email address, and that sort of thing. So we show you there on that page what is automatically already included, but then you can go and add additional contact fields if you want to. So things like their birthday, you might want to record your client's birthday and have that visible on the screen. You might want to enter the type of garden that they have, or the size of the acreage, or the type of property that it is. So if those sort of things are specific to the way that you want to do your business, you can add those in as what we call custom fields, and they'll be one of the contact fields on the left-hand side when you're in the CSV, in the CRM. So we'll show you that in more detail as well. And then the final one is email templates. So you can set up a range of standard emails, default templates, that sort of thing, and this is where they're all stored. We'll come back to that as well. All right, so that's settings in the app. And the way that we got there is settings in the top page, and then CRM settings. The other one just to be aware of, if you go under CRM settings, we've also got company settings. So I've just clicked on that there. And just make sure that that's all correct when your account sets up. We pull that in from Jim's, obviously. But there's one in particular. By default, the emails going from the system are from Formitize at formitize.com. All right, and the main reason is that we're sending, as you can imagine, hundreds of thousands of emails. And we have a very strong reputation in terms of an email sender. There are ISPs that block email addresses and that sort of thing. But you are able to choose who the email is from, name and email address at the bottom here. And that will come from you, basically, instead. So just letting you know that that's there. The only other one in terms of users is the user profile at the top. So just go in there and make sure that the detail that's required is there as well. All right, but you shouldn't need to be touching that. It should all be set ready for you. All right, so that's settings in the management portal. The other setting that is important for gyms, if you're going to use the feature, is what we call job types. Now, these are our services using the current terminology. The different services that you provide, you can set up what we call job type templates. And they're really just to save time. You don't have to do it. The system will work perfectly if you don't. But I'll just quickly run through how they work. Here you can see that we've got 4 different job types. So we've set up 4 templates for the different types of work that we do. I'll click on the weekly lawn care one. And when I go in here, you can see that there's 5 tabs across the top. All right. One other thing that's important to note is in the right-hand corner of the page, right up the top there, is a little video icon under the job type button, right? On almost every page, right through the whole system, that little video icon is sitting on that page. If you're not sure how the page works, click on that video and it'll give you a video on how the page works that you're looking at, okay? So hopefully that's a useful getting started guide that's just sitting there waiting for you. Right, let's quickly go through job types. Like I say, please remember, you don't have to use it. It's just there if you want to. And it's there to help save time. All right, job details. Here, so we're setting up a template for a weekly lawn care. Every time I do a weekly lawn care, I'm going to take advantage of this template. I can put in the name of it, give it a professional title and a description. I can set the color that I want it to be in the scheduler. So whenever I'm looking at the schedule, I can tell from the color what type of job type it is. I can put in an expected duration. So typical lawn care, I'll put in an hour, and that will assign an hour to it in the scheduler. It doesn't lock you into anything. It's just an automatic arrangement. You can set the priority for it. You can also attach both job forms and safety forms. Now again, for mowing and pool cleaning, pool cleaning may well have forms, but mowing don't normally have forms associated with the job, so you don't have to worry about it. In other areas like pest control, for example, a certain type of pre-purchase inspection job type, you can attach your pre-purchase inspection report so they're automatically assigned to that type of job. You can also add safety forms. So if safety is an important part of that particular job, you can add the right safety forms, okay? And you can see there's a rule there that won't allow you to move in and start the job form until the safety forms have been completed. So from a compliance point of view, it's a very nice thing. But again, it's up to you whether you add them in there or not. And finally, just permissions. Who's allowed to do what sort of job? Again, you probably don't have to worry about that. If you're doing dangerous work, at height work or whatever, then there may be only certain people qualified to do it. So you can define who's allowed to receive that type of job. All right, I'm going to move across to the second tab now for this job type template. And this is what's called a job status update. All right, and what it's designed to do is to automatically communicate with either the office or the customer as you're moving through the job. And it'll do it all automatically. So you can see the communication type. I've just got my mouse over it there. I can send an email, send an SMS, create a letter, or create an internal task, and that can be triggered when the job is created, when it's assigned to a user, when it's accepted by the user. And when I say the user, it's the guy in the field with the app, when the job is complete, or when the job is overdue. Okay, and I can send and I can create as many different job status updates as I want by just ticking the green button. So for this one lawn care job, I can send 4, 5, whatever different reminders, different notifications at different stages. And if I click on the email, the fields required for an email appear, and I can either enter text straight in by typing it, and then there's a little hint underneath that says press Control and space to view the placeholder option. So if I press Control space, all of the CRM placeholders are available to enter into this template. So I'll grab primary contact first name. All right? So what you're doing is building a template email so that the system will automatically grab those fields, put them into the email for you, and send it as an update.
Sorry, I missed where you are. When is it jobs and job type? I've got active recurring time.
Okay. All right. Phil, come and help you right now.
I think everyone if you haven't got job type set up, you can pick up. You go into the job type up on the top right hand corner. Your job status.
Yeah, if you haven't, I went into a job type that's already there, so that's the challenge. Probably if you go into your own account at the moment, you won't have any.
So let's just pause there for 1 second. Matt and Phil are currently taking you guys through job types. You can probably see on the screen, Matt, where did you just go? Where did you jobs?
Yes, so to get here, I've gone jobs, and then job type. And then I've selected the job type that I'm now editing. So job type, I had some in here ready to play with. For those that don't, that would have slowed you down.
You add new job type,
top right hand corner, new job type.
that will give you the option.
Okay, on the right hand side of the panel, new job type. Okay, we good? All right, so that was job status update. And the idea is, for example, as soon as the job is completed, a text can go straight to the client thanking them for their business. All right? When the job is assigned to a user, an email can go to the customer saying, thanks very much for your business. Here's a photo of John. He'll be with you on Friday. That's the type of communication that can be triggering automatically. If the job goes overdue, it can send an automated notification back to the office or whatever to say, hey, just letting you know this job's overdue. If you need to adjust the schedule, take a look. All right? So that's the functionality. Like I say, you don't have to worry about it at all. You can completely ignore it. The system will work perfectly. It's just here to help you speed things up, particularly if you're working by yourself. All right, the next tab along, next to job status updates, is future reminders. Now, again, for some, completely meaningless. For others, it's really valuable. And this is mainly about securing the next appointment. So for a quarterly inspection for test and tag, for example, or an annual inspection for a termite report, you want to make sure that if you've done a termite inspection, you're going to win the next one as well. So the idea of the future reminders is to send automated communications to the customer and to the office if you want to make sure that that customer is aware and is booking in the next appointment. So in the same way, you can send multiple reminders just by hitting the plus button to do extra ones. And then you can send email, SMS, letters, create internal tasks, X number of days, hours, or months, either before the job is due or after the job has been completed. Okay, so again, for an annual inspection, a month before it's due, you might send them a letter automatically, reminding them. A week before they get an email, and then the day before they get an SMS. All right, it's all about securing that next appointment. And in the same way, you can customize the wording of those to suit that type of job. Okay, if you're not sure how it works, again, on the right-hand side, there's a little video that takes you through everything so that you can watch that again if you're not sure how to do it. All right, so that's settings. And I know it's gone on for a long time. Like I say over and over again, you don't have to set it all up at once. You can take this in stages and do bits and pieces as you get more comfortable with the system, or you can ignore most of them and just do your jobs and do your invoices through the app, no problem. Okay. I'm just going to jump quickly across to the app now so that you can see the settings side in the app.
So webinar team, you should be able to see the changing screen as Matt's moving across to the app. Just bear with us for a couple of seconds, please.
All right. I'll leave it on the main screen just to avoid juggling around. Everybody see that okay? Right, I'm going to log in. Don't you see it? Sign of hands. How many people have logged into the app already? Just in general. Okay, all right, good. Okay. So this is the page that you will see when you log in. And in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a settings tab. Now, we are gradually moving all of the settings that you saw in the management portal into the app. So you don't actually have to do it in the app, and you can, in the portal. And you can adjust everything from the app as well. So I'm just letting you know that that's coming. And if you just flick through those when you've got a moment, you'll see that things like the invoicing, all of those different settings are exactly the same or very similar to what's in the management portal. Okay, so we appreciate that a lot of the gyms guys don't want to even know about the portal. It's all about the app. And so we're bringing more and more of that type of functionality into the app so you can be managing it all from the field. All right, so that's settings. We've covered how to create and set up your account in the portal, how to set up the job types. For most of you, the line items and the job types will be auto-populated because we've worked with your divisions to get that stuff automatically in your account when it sets up. For some of you, that wasn't done, especially if you've registered yourself in a division that we haven't rolled through yet. So you'll be going in and it's empty. If you need any help with any of it, please contact our support team and they will take you through it. Just before we move off settings, up in the top right-hand corner of the management portal, there's a little help menu. Okay? And in that help menu, you can see there's a number of different areas. There's a getting started guide, which has a whole lot of information. Not enough in there because it's moving very quickly, so we're adding more into that right now to help help you guys have all of that information in one place. The updates section is like a press release. As we're releasing new features and updates, we update that information in that section. Feature requests. If you have any good ideas, or you think Formitize could be improved, or you think it's rubbish and this area needs fixing, then log it into the feature request, all right? And that is, we take that part of the solution very seriously in terms of how we spend our time improving the solution and making it better. So if you've got any ideas as to how it can be improved or made better, or extra features you'd like to see, then please log them in there, and you can also vote for other people's ideas as well. The next one down is the support ticket. This is the very best place to log a support ticket if you've got something that you want help with. And it'll ask a couple of questions to make sure that it's going to the right person as soon as possible. Now, we got a lot of very positive feedback from our support team yesterday from the guys that were attending in terms of how quickly they were responded to. I know with a lot of software, you kind of lodge a support ticket and probably think it's gone into the ether, and maybe someone will send you a fixed email weeks later. We take the absolute opposite approach, all right? Our support team are extremely focused on fixing or helping in any way they can very quickly. It's a team that I'm very proud of. It actually comes under Phil's responsibility in activations. So he's often fielding and resizing the team as it needs to be, depending on what the requirements are. But it's absolutely the best place to go, and you'll get a very quick response by logging that ticket, either through the support bench, Mark, or you've also got the support option in the app under the help button. All right, so that's all you really need to see on that side. I'm just letting you know that it's there to help as well. All right, I think that covers off the settings side.
Thank you, Matt. We have a number of questions on notice, so I'll run through some of the webinar questions first. Matt, can you please run through how to change our password? I've tried several times, but I'm still using one slide at kickoff. So where would you change your password in, please?
Phil, do you want to address the different ways that can be done?
The easiest way to do it is up in the top right-hand corner of your board. There's a user tab. Now, every user that you have added, if you hit view users, it will give you a list of all the users in your account. And you can click on any user that you want to add or edit a password for. So you can see a lot of details. There's user permissions here that will allow you to set what a particular user can have access to in Formitize. Like they may have no access to accounts or quotes or anything like that. That's up to you. But if you go over onto the right-hand side, you just scroll down. Page 4. Companies like pest control and building inspection, some of the more complex reports will have what we call user variables in them. So that you're not entering your username, your license number and that kind of detail into every report you do, you can add it into the user profile here, and that will automatically bring that detail into your report. If you go back up to the top, over on the left-hand side, there's that display data in the user profile. You can either click on the little pencil there or the blue edit down the bottom. And as you can see, about halfway down there is the password. As soon as you click on that, it will allow you to enter a new password. And as soon as you start typing, it will then give you the opportunity to send that password to that particular user. So you can just remember that whatever you type in here, it's case sensitive. Put no spaces in it, but whatever you type in here needs to be typed exactly the same way into the app or the portal. As soon as you've done that, just hit save down the bottom, and that next time you log into the app, that password will be right.
Okay, we'll take another question from the webinar. If a future reminder is set up to send an email to a customer, is the franchisee CC'd also? Do you get a CC of an email sent to a customer?
You don't get a CC by default, but if you go into the portal, you can see every email that's been sent. So you go to CRM in the top menu, and then across to reports on the far right-hand side. So I've gone, you see there's a range of buttons across the top. Reports is on the far end of the CRM. And then underneath that is a range of tabs, the last one of which is emails. So if I click on emails there, I can see every email that's been sent through the system. So if you need to check that one's gone, you can search by date, criteria, or an email address, or whatever else, and locate that email. You can also click on the view to view it.
Take a question from the floor, Helen, please.
How do you stop Formitize from sending those emails?
How do you stop Formitize from sending those CCs?
No, sending the emails.
The emails to the client.
They go automatically.
Don't set it up. Just don't set them up in the job type if you don't want to use them. Yep.
Okay. The answer is don't set it up in the job type.
Or if you have set them up, delete them, get rid of them. Yeah.
Another question from the webinar. We have a large number of clients. We process 20 to 30 a day, depending on the size of the job. How well will Formitize manage a large transfer of data in a short space of time from our current records? How well will Formitize manage a large transfer of data in a short space of time from our current records? I'm presuming that's over from a different app.
No problem. The size of the database doesn't really matter. Obviously, you need to give it the time, but thousands and tens of thousands of clients being transferred, no issue at all. No problem.
Okay. Question from the floor here, please.
We just had a question about the SMS function, whether you're able to do like a bulk SMS, like all your clients or anything like that?
Yep.
The question is, can you do a bulk SMS with all clients?
You can't at the moment, but we are working on it. Both bulk SMS and bulk email as campaigns. Yes, it's coming. It's a good idea. Yep.
Another question from the webinar. I'm missing the help tab and the setting tabs in the app. Are there help tabs and setting tabs in the app?
Yes, there are. Make sure you've got the most recent version of the app, and they will appear as icons.
Just on that, I've noticed I've got the app on the Windows computer.
Yeah.
But on the Mac, iPad.
Yeah. Sorry, you're right. Absolutely.
Moral of the story is by Apple. So the comment was on Apple products. You can see the help and settings put on Microsoft cards.
Quite right. My apologies. You're absolutely right. On the Microsoft release, it is always slower in releasing. Not necessarily Microsoft's fault. It's more ours than theirs. So just so you're aware, if we do an update on Android, it's instant. As soon as we upload it to the store, it's instantly available. Apple used to be about 2 weeks, but they've shortened that time down now, particularly as we've been with them for a long time, to a couple of hours. Microsoft is an unknown in terms of when we submit it to when they review it and push it to the store. It's also a more technical build, so some of the features we don't release to Microsoft straight away either. So just warning you on that. If you're just using the Microsoft tablet, not all of the features will be available all the time.
Another question from the floor, Helen, please.
Yes, you mentioned adding attachments in the next release. Do you have any idea approximately when that release will be?
Yeah, we will cover that off in detail at the end, but I'm pretty sure that is in the November 30 release. Yeah, it is. Attachments to quotes and invoices, November 30.
So the question was, when will attachments to quotes and invoices be ready? It's November 30. We've got another question here from the webinar. Can you delete clients or archive them once cancelled?
Yes, you can. We actually refer to almost everything as archived, so that you're not actually ever deleting anything. You're making it inactive. okay? So that if you need to go back and restore that customer, you haven't got rid of it completely. It has been made inactive. So we'll cover that off in the contact section.
Next question also from the webinar. When creating new items in the management portal under CRM settings, who has access to see them?
The visibility of the whole system is controlled through the user page that Phil just reviewed. So we'll just touch on that again quickly now. You go to Users in the top menu and then View Users. That will show you all of the users. Obviously, for a lot of you, it's just you, so there's nothing much to see. But if you've got other people involved with the business as this person has, you can click on that person. On the left-hand side is all of their personal details, so emergency contact, when they started, when they finished with you, dates of birth, all that sort of thing. If those fields aren't visible, then just click the Edit button, either the little pencil or the Edit page, and you can enter information into those fields. On the right-hand side are Blake's, in this case, permissions and records. And the first tab that's open is the permissions. This decides what they can and can't see, okay? Both in the app and in the management portal. If you've got guys in the field, you don't even need to tell them about the management portal. It's irrelevant. They don't need to know about it. But this is controlling also what they can have access to within the app. So every element of the app is there as a tickable item, and underneath that is the permissions. While we're on this page, just very quickly, permissions is the first one. If you move across those other tabs, you can store other information about the users in there as well. So if you want to record their qualifications, keep a record of the training that they've done. If you want to upload their CVs or references, you can do that. Also, licenses is another good idea. And if any of those items have an expiry date, so if it's a certificate, a first aid certificate that has 12 months of validity, you can put in the expiry date and the system will let you know when they're approaching expiry. You can also record notes and send notifications straight to their app using the notifications page. All right, so they're relatively new features that have been added, just more of an HR module to keep all of that stuff in one place.
Okay, question from the floor, yes, please.
The emails that you send out, they get stored with the client or they get stored with the job?
Emails are sent out, stored with the client or stored with the job?
They are stored against the client. So when you go into the client, you'll see a full record of every email that's been sent to them. Yeah.
Another question from the floor.
Sorry, when sending out the email or the SMS, automatically asking the date of the job, so do it before the job's completed, send it out as a reminder we're coming today,
So when you send out an email or an SMS, does it pick up the date of the job?
Date the time of the job.
Yeah, so they're placeholders that you can grab to put in. Yeah. Just on that other point, the person asked about the email. They are, if you are, and I'll show you this in a moment, when you start with a lead and move through the system to contact the customer or send an email through the app, it does actually record all of that history against the lead and therefore the job and the quote and the invoice. So the history, this is a new feature that you'll see very soon, but it's in there now. All of that communication is tagged against the lead so you can see everything from when the lead was created to when it changed to a quote or an invoice or a job, right through to when payment's been received.
Another question from the webinar, similar to the MacBook and the Microsoft discussion. The drop-down options in the top blue bar, I don't have on the web version I'm using the MacBook. Is that just above or is that design?
Sorry, which section were they not able to see?
The drop-down options in the blue bar, and I think it was when we were talking about settings, I think.
Okay.
Jobs.
That person, if they could just make sure that they have the right permissions themselves, if they're the administrator, that's probably a permission setting that's stopping them seeing something.
So Jason, shoot through your details through the mic. We'll pick that one up offline. Next question, are we able to change the format or look and feel of the invoice?
I'm not sure what division that person is from. The structure of the invoice at the moment is fixed if you're using the system as it's built in the CRM. So in other words, if you're converting a lead to a quote to an invoice, that structure is fixed. For divisions like fencing, where they have fairly complicated invoicing requirements in that they're invoicing potentially 8 different people on the same job, then we would break out of this current format and use our form solution to create that invoice. And once we've done that, it can look and feel and have whatever structure is required. It's completely flexible. But in terms of using it via the CRM with integration to Xero, the structure's fixed.
We have a few more questions from the webinar. How do I enter an expense? I need to recall fuel and other purchases easily.
Okay, so that's via the app. We're kind of moving away from settings a bit here, but we'll just quickly have a look.
Do we cover it in a later session?
We do, yeah.
Okay, we'll cover that question in our later session. There are 2 more questions from the webinar. Can a note be deleted? If so, how? I think we'll cover that in a later session. And also, can we go over forms a little bit more and their creation? We haven't touched on them yet.
We can. It's a pretty big separate subject.
Maybe we can do that after the session.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So we'll cover forms and those other questions either at the pertinent point or later when we have a bit of time. Another question from the floor.
With the reminders for payments, are those reminders based on the user going in and actually reconciling on a daily basis? It doesn't pick up from the bank account or that integration.
So the reminders for payments is the integration with bank accounts.
If you're using Xero, you still need to mark it as paid. So Xero goes in and does your bank feed matching, matches your invoicing to the payments that have come into the bank, but you still have to say okay to reconcile that as a recorded payment. As soon as you've done that, it automatically updates Formitize as being a paid invoice.
So that's done in Xero, not in Formitize?
It's done in Xero, yeah. if you're using Xero. If you're doing it through Formitize, then you go into the invoice and mark it as paid, record it as paid.
On the integration, I don't know if we cover it later, but when I've been recording some invoices in the last couple of days, it come up saying that my Xero token expired. It's referring me on to Xero, redirecting me to Xero and nothing happens.
Okay, all right, we'll help you with that. Sometimes something breaks the link between the two. Pretty rare, but we'll help you with that today. Yes.
So for the webinar's benefits, there's a broken link between Xero and Formitize that will be handled offline. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Quick one with the quoting. Give the ability to actually type the subtotal. If you've got multiple lines, rather than showing all the details of the client, in the bottom line cost.
With the quoting, can you just show the bottom line, or can you hide the subtotals?
Unfortunately, you can't at the moment, automatically. Obviously, you can adjust and put a manual entry in for the total without using line items as they're meant to be used. That's how most of our clients get around it at the moment. We will be looking at adding flexibility into the quote. So an example of that is you might have 10 different line items with individual amounts. You're adjusting discounts and things on that, but you don't want the client to see any of that. All you want the client to do is the final total amount. So we're aware of it as a requirement, but it's not currently available. To get around it, you just go in and do the manual line item.
Another question from the webinar: can a franchisee use Formitize without an accounting package?
The short answer is yes. Longer answer is it's not an accounting package. So I appreciate that. I think it's Jim's Jobs was an excellent overall solution and accounting package. In saying that, you can record all of your income, all of your expenses. It will prepare a report on all of that, including tax. and we're about to release in the next few days, I can show you an image of it later, it can generate an income and expenditure account like a profit and loss statement, separating net, tax, and total. So we're getting closer, I suppose, to being able to do the very basic accounting that a lot of people want to see, certainly in terms of seeing income and expenditure over the last week or the next month or the next 6 months or whatever it might be. But it doesn't replace the full balance sheet and income and expenditure statements that you'd be used to.
Related question, if using an accounting package, can you issue invoices from the accounting package rather than from Formitize?
Yes, and we'll get into invoicing again later, so I won't spend too much time on that now, but if you create the invoice in Formitize, it will push into the accounting software, and vice versa. If you create the invoice in the accounting software, it will pull into Formitize. Xero only at the moment. We'll cover off MYOB and then QuickBooks later in the session.
Question from the floor, please.
The default payment terms in the CRM, is there a way to put that as COD?
Default payment terms can be put in as COD.
I think the only way you can actually do it is to set it to 1. We don't have an official COD term because the number is what's triggering days, if you like. Yeah. But in your terms and conditions on the invoice, you can certainly say cash on delivery.
Matt, we had a number of questions in the PowerPoint. Can you just bring up the PowerPoint, please, and share with folks at home? And just put on full screen. So we have a number of questions. Hopefully the people on the end of the webinar can see the PowerPoint now. Can my wife or someone else use it at home whilst I'm in the field using the app? And how does it work if 2 people are accessing the one file?
Okay, so the first one, absolutely. It's exactly how it's designed. So you can have multiple people using the management portal at once, and obviously you can have multiple people using the app at once. There's no restrictions on either of those. In terms of 2 different people accessing the one file, again, no problem. It's designed that way. So different people can be working on the same client or whatever and adding information at the same time. No issues there. And the third one is, can I get a separate login for my employees? Absolutely. And we in fact, we encourage it. Just lock down what they can see if you're concerned about that. But if they are each logging in separately, there's a whole lot of accountability that goes with that. You know when they're logging on, you can assign jobs to them, all the job tracking and the status of those jobs is being recorded. It effectively has a run sheet in that they can go into the jobs part, click on today, and there's their run sheet for the day. So absolutely, we encourage every user to have their own login and to be using it separately. Under the GIMS agreement, you don't pay anything extra for multiple users. Traditionally, within Formitize, it's a cost per user, but the technology fee with GIMS covers unlimited users for each division, each franchise.
Okay, we'll move to the next slide. Does it automatically sync when I'm in the field, or do I need to press a sync button?
So yes, it does automatically sync. It saves within the device every 15 seconds roughly, so it's very difficult to lose information. It does work perfectly with or without internet connection in terms of collecting information, but obviously you need to have connection to be sending data. There is a force sync button, which I'll show you when we come off these slides. Basically, when you're on the home page of the app with the different icons on the front page, there's a little gray arrow in the top at the top. You just drag the whole page down until that arrow turns, and that force syncs the app instantly. It's a good idea to do it just to update something that if you want to know that you're definitely looking at the latest information.
Thank you, Matt. Next slide, please. How much data plan do I need?
The Formitize itself uses very little data. We compress photos on the device end and then re-expand them on the other side, taking photos in different forms and things. But to just give you an example, a building inspection report or a pest control report, you can do about 1,000 of those with 1 gig of data. It's actually more than that now, so negligible. You don't need to worry about it.
Okay. Do I need to set up the management portal before I start, or can I just use the app?
So I think as we went through this morning, the more of the settings that you get right from the start, the better the system will work for you. But you can absolutely just pick up the app and start using it. Just, I guess, if you've got your line items in there, especially your invoice line items and your purchase line items, it'll just make it so much faster. But you don't have to. We encourage it, but you don't have to.
And then the next one is about working offline. Can I work offline if I have no data on my phone? Does it work offline?
So we covered that quickly. Yes, it does work offline. The more online you are, particularly for quotes and invoicing, because we're updating backwards and forwards. So it's preferred that you're online to be doing that, but you only need to go online quickly to do that sort of thing. If you're filling in reports, like pest control reports or whatever, all of that works perfectly offline. So really, online, really focus on quoting and invoicing. Pretty much everything else, you don't need it at all. And certainly in terms of completing jobs and that sort of thing, you can do that with no connection.
And then the last question on notice is, can you remove photos once added?
Yes, you can. I'm not sure what the context of that is, but again, if you're in the pest control or building section type sectors where you're taking photos in reports, those reports are submitted back to the management portal. So you've got an option where you can either send the finished PDFs instantly to the client. What most tend to do is send it back to the management portal where they can review it and make wording changes or add thermal images or whatever else. At that point, you can also add and remove photos within those reports. Just while we're on photos, the November 30 release also includes the ability to add photos and signatures to quotes and invoices. So before and after shots on a lawn mowing invoice, for example, signature sign off on a quotation. All of that functionality we've got running beautifully in our forms. The forms are full of amazing features, drawing tools and all sorts of things. So we're just moving some of those items across to make the invoicing and quoting tools more powerful for you.
Excellent. Any more questions from the floor before we move on? All good? Okay, we'll move on to client data import and clients.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the management portal now and to the CRM button in the top left-hand corner of the screen. It's going to take us into the customer detail page. For those of you that haven't seen the management portal before, this is the front dashboard. I'm logged in here as Blake, as one of the people in the office potentially, or whatever. Down the left-hand side is a timeline that shows all of the recent activity. So you can see there an email was successfully received by the client, and another one. I've added a note to a client file. I've added an invoice. I've converted a quote to an invoice. I've called the customer and left a call note. So that timeline is just showing all of that recent activity. Down the bottom of my dashboard page is the tasks that I've got in time and date order for the different customers or internal tasks. But this question is all about adding new customers. So I'm going to click Contacts in the top menu bar next to Home, Contacts. Okay, so we're now in the contact page. Waiting for people at home to catch up with us now. Okay. So this is what you're facing when you come into a blank contact page. Obviously this one's populated. Again, if you're using Xero and you have done the Xero integration, all of your customer details will already be in here. The customer type, all of their contact details and everything else will be fully populated. If you haven't, then in the top right-hand corner, also with gyms, if it's been arranged, if you haven't spoken to gyms or been in contact with them about pulling your contacts in from your existing gym systems, then we'll go through how to do that later, but Infotech at gyms will help with that. Formitize can't pull information in from gyms. We can only receive what's pushed. So please work with them and get that information across if it's relevant. Okay. Now, I don't want to bore you to tears with this. This section's kind of about databases and importing databases and that sort of thing. Some of you will be all over this like a rash. Others will want to shoot yourselves. But I'm going to go through it really quickly just so you get a flavor for it. On the right-hand side of this page in the top, you can see that there's 3 buttons: adding a new lead, importing, and adding a new contact. So I'm going to click on the plus import button, which is where you can import files into Formitize. Now, as you can see on this page, there's quite a lot of helpful notes to just guide you through that process and talks about the different field types and how to manage it. Adding in your custom fields. So we encourage you to, if you've got custom fields that are in your database but not in ours, we encourage you to set those up with us first so that those fields are all matching nicely before you do the import. And with importing, it's a classic case of rubbish in, rubbish out, okay? Whatever is going to go in is going to result in what comes out. So the more time that you spend on getting the import right, the better the result will be in the long run. There's 2 green buttons to show you. Now, a CSV file is like an Excel file. It stores the data in columns and rows and is the tool that most systems use to share data. So we have formatted there the format that we would like to receive that data in order to enable the upload to work perfectly. Okay? And if you click on the example data in that page, it'll bring up a CSV file just to show you the format of that. So it gives you an example of how it works, particularly around multiple contacts and multiple locations if you've got that situation. So for example, if you've got a real estate client, but you've got 10 different locations under that real estate client, it shows you how to manage that, right? Particularly showing the billing name has to be consistent, and then the contacts and address details can change. All right, so just spend a little bit of time on that. As I say, if you need help, please contact us because we're all keen to help get that import as smooth and as accurate for you as possible. But that's how you import customers into the CRM and therefore the system. Whatever you're doing in the CRM is reflected in the app, okay? They're one and the same as far as data and that sort of thing is concerned. All right, if I go into the contact page, while we're here, just have a quick look at how the contacts work. So on the left-hand side, there's an ID number, their status. So that's where they can be either active or inactive. You can set customer types, and again, they are customizable as well. So typically you'll have either customer or supplier, but you can then add your own styling to those and separate them in different ways if you want to, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And then all the standard items, primary contact, billing name, phone, email, etc., address. The latest note is there just as a quick reference. If I click into one, I'll just go to ABC. I know there's information in that. Okay, you can see here it's got a couple of extra tags against the one underneath. They're contractors, support clients, and a supplier. I'll click on this one. All right, so now we are in ABC Transport's page, okay? Don't forget, little video on the right-hand side if you want to know how this page works in more detail later. But it's basically divided into 3 modules. On the left is all of the contact details, all right? So you've got their billing, shipping, if there's a shipping address. You can have multiple people for this company or this business. So if it's a residential, you'll have the husband and wife as two different contacts. If it's a business, you might have their operations manager or their landscaping manager or their MD or whatever it might be. And then locations, as I said earlier, the typical example is you'll have a real estate client that is the billing address, but then you might have 10 different properties that you manage for that company. So you can create those as different locations. And the advantage of that is when you invoice the real estate agent, it will bring that location in as a line under the invoice billing terms. So it's identifying the property on the invoice. In terms of the Xero integration, you can see now that I'm looking at the company, I can see what's been invoiced and what's currently outstanding. That might affect the next job we do for this business. If I click on the Xero icon, it'll take me straight into that customer's page in Xero. So that's done. So that's the contacts page on the left. We talked about adding custom fields and that sort of thing. You just click on the little edit pencil in the top right-hand corner. Okay, you see that? It's very small on the big screen, but the right-hand corner of the contact, click on that. That opens up the modal, and this is where you can add additional fields if you want to by hitting Add Custom Field. If you want to create different types of customers, then you just add it in here. So you might have a VIP category of customer type, add that in, and now you've got a new category. Okay? This is where you adjust the billing terms for this particular client, so it will default to your business default, but you can change it here. On completion is the COD effect of what we've talked about earlier. Source, where the lead came from, and then the other typical things can just be changed and edited from here. All right, so that's editing the contact details and adding additional fields. All right, so that's the top. Under the communications panel, it opens up to tasks automatically. You can create a new task for this customer right here. In the notes section, it records all the notes for the customer. In the note history, all the historic notes are there. You can send emails and communications, SMS, straight from the client to the client from here as well. And this is where you can set up default template emails if you want to. I'm not going to go into any detail on that today. A lot of you won't use them at all, but it's there just so that you know. If you're calling customers from the management portal, it will bring up the numbers here from the contacts that you're looking at. You hit start call, call the customer, enter the call notes into the black box underneath. It's recording the duration and time of the call. You can then end it and close it. You can create a new task from those call notes. And that will all be recorded against the client and the client history. Down the bottom, and I'm not meant to be spending time on this now, but I'll go through it very quickly. Down the bottom is all the activity related to this customer. So you've got all of that in one place as well, all right? So I'm still in ABC Transport's page here, but I'm looking at all of the activities. So all of the jobs that are being done for this customer across the different statuses, so active, in progress, recurring, completed jobs, and overdue. That will show all of the job details and their current status. If you're doing forms and reports with us, all of the forms that have been submitted for that customer will be in the Forms tab. You can set up reminders, upload documents like service agreements or contracts or anything like that. And then if you move across, you can see the leads or opportunities for the customer, the quotes that you've got running for that customer and their current status. I won't spend any time on that now because we'll cover it off later. Invoices and purchases in exactly the same way. So all of the information really that's related to this customer is all available in the contact section of both the CRM, and the app has almost all of that same functionality, which we'll have a look at shortly too. All right. How are we going for questions, guys?
Yep. Let's take the questions on notice. I've got one here from the webinar. We've been Jim's clients for greater than 20 years. Can Formitize handle Jim's Infotech sending through hundreds of thousands of clients we've had over the years, or will it just be from regular times?
I guess the answer to that is it can handle anything. It's also a good opportunity and time to do some housekeeping and clean up this sort of database as well. So you don't necessarily want to clog the whole solution up with historic data that you're not using anymore. So my encouragement, this is every business regardless of size, is use this as an exercise to clean up your database and get it relevant. But in terms of volume of customers, there's no issue. I think Xero has a limit of about 10,000 customers. So just be aware of Xero's limits when if you're intending to use Xero. That's my only response, really. If there really are hundreds of thousands of clients, perhaps contact us first and we'll make sure that we assist with that upload.
Question on that. I'm actually using Formitize for business as well, so maintenance.
Okay.
So within that business, I have a real estate agent that has multiple locations. I know that you can add locations into the actual client that have attached there, but up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was also able to add them in at the invoicing or quoting stage in a location. That functionality is now gone. I have lodged a support ticket, and the response was basic. And I don't know if, I can't answer the question, is adding it in the location area, might be a question for later.
Yeah.
I don't know if that information is then just sort of as a note to that particular invoice, or if it actually transferred across and added it as a location.
Okay. So is that adding a new location from the invoice page?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the quoting page.
Okay. All right. We'll have a look at that. But it certainly should be there.
So the question is, for a client with multiple locations, you can normally add in, but from the invoice stage, for the past couple of weeks, you've been unable to do that. So we'll take that offline and handle that separately. One of the good things about being on site is you've got the gurus here. So if you've got any of those issues, please jump on Matt or Phil at the break.
The other one's a combination issue, probably for the Jim's guys as well. When a lead comes through Formitize. It also comes through to Jim's Online, so that's managed. If I'm getting a client from a referral and I add that into Formitize, does that push back into Jim's Online? Okay, if I put it into Jim's Online, does it push through Formitize? Because really, if I'm having to, there should be some sort of link between it.
Yeah. So that's the pickup, the second one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great idea. We had a lot of talk about this yesterday. It's a really nice feature. So the question is, does a lead added to Formitize update gym systems? And equally, does a pickup update? The answer, unfortunately, at the moment is no. But it's been tabled as a development. We can see, especially over the last few days, how much interest and value it would bring in terms of not having to double entry everything. So we will certainly be looking at that.
Yeah, I'll just go on the assumption that it's happening.
Right.
Which is clearly not. But that obviously affects the way we get charged as well with leads coming through. So
right.
You never don't get charged. But
yes. Yeah. Okay. Understand. So if you just think, if you think for the moment, nothing is being pushed back from Formitize to gym systems. It's a one-way push. Okay, so that just across everything, that will hopefully answer most questions related to it. Yeah, well, we haven't done any development towards it, but certainly, I mean, we were already aware of how much value it would bring, and so it's certainly been tabled as something to work with Jim's guys on delivering. Yeah.
So a summary of that for the webinar team, when you put a pickup in Formitize, does it automatically update FMS or Jim's Online? The answer is no. It's currently a manual entry. Is there any development in the pipeline? The answer is no, but there's a lot of interest and there'll be some discussion on how to develop that and when to put that in place. A question from the floor, please, myself.
Just on that, leads coming through, the leads are reallocated in the gym system, doesn't flow through to water time. Only pure leads came through the system, flow through. Is there any way that can be changed?
The question is, if leads are reallocated within gyms, they don't come through to Formitize, is there going to be any change to that in the near future?
The honest answer is that it hasn't been discussed, so that's something we need to look at as well.
The really good thing about that question or that suggestion is we can now put that on the development pipeline to be discussed. So if you've got items like that, we'll talk about it later as well, but make sure those suggestions come through. I have another question here from the webinar. If you initiate integration of Xero whilst already having existing customers in Formitize and Xero, will it duplicate customer data in Xero?
The short answer is, if the details are exactly the same, it won't duplicate. If there are variances in the name or the spelling or the structure of it, then there's a chance that it could duplicate. So if you're using a consistent method all the way through and it's the same spelling, it'll be fine. But otherwise, there may be some duplicates if there's anything different.
Another question from the webinar on initial setup, Formitize imported all my suppliers across as customers. Why did this happen?
Obviously, I'm not exactly sure how, on that particular case, what happened, but you do need to make sure that in Xero, your suppliers are tagged as suppliers, because if they're not and the default is customer, then Formitize will receive it as a customer. So when you're doing that Xero import, a lot of people don't bother categorizing their contact as a supplier. So it's something that you just need to have a look at if that hasn't been done.
Next question, can Formitize show income outstanding without the Xero link?
Yes, it can. The only caveat to that is that you need to be on top of your recording payments received and that sort of thing. The data tables will work separately, and we're actually doing some more work on that. So you'll see some nice development on that over the next couple of months in terms of visibility, adding job value so that you can look at what are my jobs worth for the next week and the next month and that sort of thing. There's been a lot of demand from the gyms guys about that, and we're doing a fair bit of work on that right now.
Any more questions from the floor before we go to questions on those? Good? James.
Just really sort of basic one, Matt. New franchisees come in all the time. The best way to get them set up and start is simply just go to help and say, follow your nose, go to the getting started page. What's the best way to get a new franchisee green started in 2 months?
Okay.
What's the best way to get a green franchisee started?
Are you in Melbourne? Yes. Okay. So I know Mike Davenport spends a couple of hours on Formitize now for every new franchisee. We're going to spend a day on it today and not cover all of it. So 2 hours is a pretty fast and furious overview. But we're actually working with Mike now to sort of trim that right down to what I need to do to go out tomorrow and start using the app. All right. I don't care about all of the other stuff. I just want it to work for my business tomorrow. So we will be spending more time on fine-tuning that training to give them that enablement from day one. But he does cover it enough, I think, and certainly that will improve over time as he gets used to it and gyms get used to it and everything else, that they should be in a position to be okay. In addition to that, you've seen the videos as we've talked about through the management portal. So if the franchisor is spending a little bit of time with them, it's just showing them those sections and reminding them that there's videos. We will be beefing up that getting started guide, particularly considering the different types of, gyms guys tend to be one guy in the field by himself. So we will be adjusting the notes to be more sympathetic to that type of business as well. So that will improve over time too. Another question from the webinar, can we merge customers duplicated
due to slightly different details, such as name details?
Yeah, our merging of contacts is rubbish at the moment. We are very aware of it, and there is a fix coming through that will enable that to be much smoother. So it will compare fields and enable really quick contact merging. At the moment, it's a bit rubbish. You need to delete one and edit the other, I'm afraid. But you'll see that coming through very soon.
Next question. If I'm starting from scratch and going to implement Xero, should I enter all the data into Xero first and then push it through to Formitize?
Yes, I think that's probably the smart way to do it. It keeps everything consistent, and you've got your accounting side right from the start. So yes, I think if you are using Xero, update Xero and get it right first, and then push through. But it doesn't matter either way. Either way, they will both be sharing the data at the end of the day.
Next question from the webinar. If I have entered a site location twice, how can I delete the duplicate?
Yes. That was one of the things that our old Formitize held off as a restriction from field users. They didn't want them to be able to adjust that. So we're adjusting that for the gyms group right now so that you will be able to delete locations and edit locations. So
let's quickly go through some of these questions on notice on the PowerPoint. Do I set up my customers in the portal or the app? Should I set up the client schedule in the portal or the app first?
In terms of setting up customers, I would absolutely use the portal. It's a lot easier to do it, and you can only do it on bulk through the portal. Certainly adding individual customers, app or the portal is fine, and you'll probably more likely be doing that in the app. The client schedules, we went through a couple of scenarios yesterday with some of the guys, just physically doing it here and there. Again, I think if you've got time, I would set those up in the portal first, so it's done, and then from then on you would use the app. If you're out in the field, once you've set up all of your existing base, it's very easy to add new jobs and turn those into recurring jobs from the app. So the one-off jobs from then on I would do from the app. Unless you've got someone at home that's doing that for you, then the app is perfect for ongoing.
The question, do I need to put all of the client's details in, for example, the historical notes?
You don't need to, of course. And like I said earlier, this is a good chance for a bit of a cleanup. So a lot of that historic information isn't necessary, especially the really old information. So it's up to you how much information you put in. Another feature that we are just adding right now as well is location notes. So for every location that you do, you can add specific fixed notes for that location. So it might be, for this particular house, you've got to pick up the keys from the neighbour, and that's just going to be assigned to that location all the time. For this particular property, don't touch the what look like weeds in the right-hand corner because they're precious plants or whatever. So that's being added right now. In terms of the historical notes, personally, I would start fairly fresh, but have enough in there that you've got the notes that you need for that customer.
Excellent. We'll jump to the next slide, please, Matt. Next slide, we'll talk about invoice items of invoicing. Can I print my client list? Can I print active clients and non-active clients?
First one, is there a standard quote or invoice template?
No, let's do those.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We'll do those.
Sorry, yes.
Can I print?
Can you print your client list? You can. I'll show you how to do that. We don't encourage printing, of course, being a paperless business, but yes, you can. Or you can print a CSV report, or download a CSV report of your clients that you can then print. Can I print active clients? Yes, you can separate them by either active or inactive and print those as well. So I can show you how to do that. You can do that now, or
let's save that one for after quotation.
Yep.
If you jump to the next slide, I think we'll leave this as the last question. Will my customers be transferred if I'm buying a split or a resale? The answer is come to info@gyms.net There's a release in preparation at the moment, and there's an FMS form modification that will be automatically, that will allow automatic transfer of the customers. So that one's in preparation, soon to be released. Look, we've got a few more questions there, but if there are any more questions on notice from the webinar, please send them through the question bar on the GoToMeeting link. And questions from the floor. For the next 30 minutes, you have Phil and Matt at your complete disposal. Attack them, suck their brains, and we'll be joining back here at 11 a.m. for the next session. Thank you very much.
Me? Both of you. Yeah, come around this way. I've been asked by Circuit Divisional when we're getting our historical data pushed through to Formitize. So I didn't know whether it was you or whether it was you. So I'd ask both of you.
Historical data from Jimbo?
Yeah.
Okay. So that gets done by our department, the Chief department. We have one of our developers who handles that. Are you a new franchisee?
No, this is, I'm asking you for divisional, because the spec, from building inspection.
Yep.
She set the questions through to ask everybody. So she wants to know.
That's a manual process.
It is a manual
process. Done on demand.
Okay, so it's done on demand, so she's got to actually ask for it.
Yeah, so they send us an email to infotech, gyms.net, with the what Jimbo account they want.
Okay,
and sync Formitize account.
Okay.
And our developers will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on his, you might do that day. Depends on his workload. Fair bit going on at the moment, but yeah, he's churning through them.
Oh, just so I can know, I can tell her it is a manual process. It does have to let me know.
Yeah, it has to be, it's done on demand.
Yes, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So that'll be for the whole division, or is it done on demand for individual?
Yeah, account by account.
So the individual franchisee has got to ask for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and they just shoot an email to Infotech. Because not all people do. Some people have been using chance to have a point in place. So not all. We have across the board type thing. So yeah, just basically Infotech will do it on that. Best to get your Formitize account set up first. That has to be that's if you're an existing franchisee.
Well, you can't import something into something that hasn't been
created. Correct.
Created. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the best way to go. Franchisees, they can opt into Formitize via Gyms Online.
Hey Matt,
section online. There's a Formitize opt-in checkbox. You check that. And that's David. Are you sure you want to opt in to Formitize?
Antennas.
So for franchisees that started before 2013, they don't have to pay the technology fee. So if you're one of those, you have to use Formitize, you need to opt in and accept the technology fee. So once you do that, you get an email back from Formitize with your account details. Once you've got that, that's the best time to then email Infotech with your request. Okay. Or Jimbo has there.
Thank you.
That's all right.
That's great.
Yep, no worries. Yep. A lot of like probably the common data.
Yeah, and do they all roughly, how much roughly they'll have the same types of items?
Well, the basic form is what we call our own, which gives us pricing guide for generic items. And I think
So I'll just show you how to do it. You go to Accounts, in the top menu, and then items in the settings. And then there's an import button here. And then it gives, again, examples of sell only, etc. Yeah. And then upload the file to here once you've got it right. Yeah. And then you can add individual items from then on, either
then the individual, I was just actually doing that before, I actually modified just put in.
Right.
Which is very generic.
Right. The new items just a new item.
So I think I might do a CSV file for a few of the blokes. So they can actually see items.
Right.
Because at the moment, what's in the division is user input.
Right. Okay. Okay. Good. That's very helpful. You probably, I don't know if I went through this today, but bought and sold items, if it's just something that they buy and don't resell, then just untick that and yeah.
Yeah. How much when you can put cost basis purchase prices in there, is that just report back into account properly?
Yes. Yeah. We are doing more on the individual job profitability as well, so that will be coming through.
We're a bit funny. We're often not big enough to really need the integration, and my accountant does things to actually run the book straight on bank feeds.
Right. Okay.
So if I was to integrate an accounting package, I'd use a different accounting package for my accountant.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem.
I've been down that road before. When you run a business, one set of books to your accountant, one set of books to your business.
Right. I don't need to know anymore.
Well, the basically the same thing. My accountant's a very, very smart man.
Okay.
And we go for a flat $240 a month is everything.
Right.
And all he asks is to use Australian mile.
Yep.
And so I'm a
I know the feeling.
you look a little bit like that. And everything is done on bank feed, setting rules up.
Okay.
You just process the whole year's
Nice.
stuff
Okay.
off that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it doesn't, it prefers you not to do anything like your daily invoice or anything like that in there.
Okay.
We just pull everything through basically cash from the account.
Right.
And there's rationality for small business, you don't have to go into too much detail.
Okay.
And even you don't ask about the fact that you never spend no tax on things.
I'll have to get his name.
He's an interesting chap actually. He primarily does, he does what he enjoys, which is complex tax.
Right.
And then he keeps the office running a whole stack of small
The other stuff.
Yeah, about $240 a month.
Right.
When you think about it,
Yeah.
good way to make money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, no, it's good. The thing is not tendency because I think every division is completely different.
Okay. Yeah, good. Okay. Well, we'll get into the app now, so that hopefully it'll seem a bit easier once.
Well, the app will probably basically keep us moving forward.
It's funny, the mixed reactions I get about it. Some are fiercely loyal and others to death, and others.
The amount of time it costs me to get push emails. Just a text visitor.
Right.
Is it Paul? Right.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice to see go.
Okay.
I've been looking forward to this test for a while.
I think the antenna guys can see that some of them are very little. Yeah, and that's the big guy. How you going? Good. Sorry, what's showing on the? This way.
We had a few questions. I mean, I don't know if you want to during the next session.
Hi, how are you?
I'm trying to get, I've got things online, but I'm trying to get the little box tick to opt in for Formitize, but it's just red and white, I think.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
That might be one for infotech.
Yeah. I'm trying to tick the box for opt in to Formitize on things online, and it's all this big red. It won't let me tick it.
Oh, let me have a look.
Sorry, mate, through that hospital bath.
Yeah, what was it, what was the Wi-Fi password?
This is a 2013. Okay, with that, yeah, for thank you.
Hey, could you send questions through to me as they come?
Yeah,
I'll manage. That quotations were an hour yesterday.
Right.
I think I'll keep going with a few questions on those.
At the end or before?
Before we'll do some more.
Oh, so you mean it was too short yesterday? Yeah, okay.
I'll do some more client questions on those.
Sure.
I got a question for you.
I think.
So there's tips and tags.
Okay.
So we're the divisional franchisors.
Okay.
We've got a few national clients that we look after and divvy out to the franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to be able to schedule the jobs so I can let the franchisees know when they're due.
Okay.
Not the convinced of invoicing through Formitize,
Okay.
but I need the notifications.
Okay.
Of when jobs are coming up.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So after lunch, we'll be doing the whole scheduler and job dispatch. So hopefully we'll cover that then. But you're, hang on a second. So you're going to be assigning to different franchisees and different groups. Are they receiving the lead in the first place? No. So the only way you can do that at the moment is to go into their account and assign it in their account, which you're probably not going to want to do. How many of them are there?
I've got a couple of small, when you say sites.
Oh, no. Businesses. How many franchisees are you talking about?
Look, at the end of the day, it could be all of them.
Right.
You know, we're trying to
Okay.
increase that.
So you're sort of creating yourselves as a distribution point in the middle. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we have got one client that has 200 sites.
Okay.
We're trying to reduce.
Visually. Right. So it's one large corporate business with sites everywhere.
Yeah.
You're splitting that up across.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah. So if all of those franchisees were in one account, you can absolutely do it, right? That's what the system is built to do. You can sign out the jobs and they receive it to do it. Your difficulty with gyms is that each is a separate business in its own right. So we need to come up with something that's sitting in the middle there between gyms and them, that's you, that enables you to distribute. Yeah. It's not there at the moment. We have built it because we have other franchises that use it and do it exactly that way, in the same way that we distribute leads to gyms itself to the different things. But you're looking for a second tier, so I'll have to come back to you on that. Can I take your details before you? And I'll here if you like. It won't be something I can quickly just to pre-warn you.
Yep, that's
but there may be a way that we can do a bulk import. Do you know them in advance? Are they scheduled for the year
and
or something?
that's something I need to sure that I really need to be able to keep.
Right, so you know at the start of the year or whatever who those jobs are going to across those. In that case, we can do an upload into those accounts of those jobs.
Okay.
So that might be a workaround.
Yep.
So basically the upload of the spreadsheet or whatever the jobs are in the first place. We'll just split those between the franchise codes and upload those into the franchise accounts. That would be a starting point at least. You could do that. Yeah. Without doing too much work in it. It's almost off the shelf. Yeah. But it's only for a couple of corporates or their losses.
There's only a couple at the moment.
Hopefully there's more to come. It's a nice idea, isn't it? You've got a network of guys all over the country to service big clients. Okay. I'll make a note of that and we'll communicate with our, if you communicate with our support team about it, that'll help you, but I'll brief them so they know what we're talking about. All right. Thanks.
I've got much name up. Yeah, I've already had it. At brand. That was just a username.
So this have you got access to that? Email you?
No. Hey.
You good?
No, that was my old old thing. So look, I've got my
That's about 2 hours more than you normally do.
It feels like I'm doing nothing.
I was just asking Stuart, are you aware of any issue with the
Okay, that's cool. I'll check with Stuart. I just a user over there tick the box and it doesn't seem to do anything. Maybe I should try clearing the cache on the browser. Yeah, I'm just typing it down. Hey, Olivia. How are you, mate? All good so far. No one's throwing anything. It's gone pretty well. I'll do feedback, Jeremy. Yeah, for sure. A lot of people haven't gone in and experienced it yet.
For an iCloud and email address?
Yeah, that's right. It's only a matter of time, and I guess the reliability of the other options starts to fade away. They'll get over it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Right, yeah. And quite a lot of these, we're releasing the new features of them upcoming. A lot of them are making them more Jimbo-like, some of the things aren't. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. Stayed the last 2 nights, so we came in Wednesday night, did a full day yesterday, back home tonight, fly back tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I think very important.
Unless we catch up on lunch, but these guys are inundated functioning program. For Matt, not only is he talking all day, but then he has to do all of the help and support with the guys on site.
That's all right. Cool, fun.
It's not bad. We will talk to Matt at some point about this. Because we need to make a decision on that. So, phenomenal opportunity. Just need to make it happen.
You're right. Yeah, good. Okay. I'd love to help. Yeah.
I'll be around lunch.
Why don't you come to lunch at the conference center? Okay.
My time is at 12:30.
On the dot. Actually, we ended up there 45 minutes early yesterday.
If I'm in charge, it'll be a little bit earlier. They're storing up questions for me now. I can see it. Yeah. All my get out quick options are disappearing.
At midnight last night, I was still getting emails from one people. I think we're on. So we've got a bit of time up our sleeve in this session. So I'll ask those questions first. So Matt, buzzer on the ready, please. Can you print out a list of owing invoices with funds owing?
Okay. So to do that, we'll go into the CRM, so where all your accounts are managed. One question I was just asked while I'm on this page, one of the gentlemen here came and just checked whether you could import line items as well, which you can do. We didn't touch on that. So under the account settings, you've got your line items, and on the right-hand side, you can see there's an import button. So if you've got lots of line items, then rather than adding them individually, you can go ahead and import that file. See that at home now? Okay. So that's where you do it. Accounts, items, or via the settings, CRM settings, items, and then click on the import button, and that brings up the import page to, in the same way, upload a CSV file of your line item. Okay, So the question was on viewing unpaid.
Can you print out owing invoices?
All right.
Outstanding.
So we are going to cover invoices in more detail later. But just to get a quick snapshot of that answer, when you go to accounts, you can click on the invoices tab. So I've gone to accounts in the top menu and then invoices. From here, you can filter the invoices by their status. So I'll click on unpaid. That will just show me the unpaid invoices. I can add more filters if I want to. So underneath there, you've got a whole range of other filters. So not only do I want to look at the unpaid ones, but within an expected pay date range, for example, or based on the date created, or the ones that are unpaid that I'm expecting as cash, or whatever it might be. So all of those extra filters are waiting for you. And then you just simply hit the download CSV file. As a download file, you can then do whatever you like, including printing it.
Excellent, thank you, Matt. Can you print a list of expenses?
Yeah, exactly the same way. So instead of invoices, you go to the next tab along, which is payments, and you've got exactly the same functionality there to review the payments that you've made and download CSV. The other way to do it, just so you're aware, which has got even more detail, is if you go to the Reports tab on the far right-hand side, you'll see that there are a number of different options there, including purchases. And from this stage, you can also go and do a whole lot of additional filtering on all of your expenses from the Reports tab. So it's within the CRM, the far right-hand button, Reports, and then across Reports, you've got your different tabs: contacts, past, reminders, quotes, invoices, and purchases. And from there, you've got all of the additional filtering and data information.
Next question from the webinar. Currently transferred jobs are not automatically sent through to the Jimbo app. Will transferred jobs be sent through to Formitize, or do we need to manually call the call centre and get them to push the transfer lead?
That's what the process is for a transferred job. As far as Formitize is concerned, we receive the lead from gyms and don't really have any control over what happens of where it came from before that.
So I think the answer to that one is yes, you do contact the call centre, but we will confirm and come back on that one. Next question. A large number of our clients do not have access to mobiles or computers, such as elderly clients. We need to print invoices and quotes. We also print a run sheet each day in case of blackouts or if out of range. We work in both metro and rural areas, and Formitize do this for us. Invoices and run sheets.
First of all, printing invoices is no problem.
Cover that in invoices.
We'll cover that in invoices, yes. So you just get the invoice to the PDF view, and then you can print it, download it, and do whatever you like with it. With regard to run sheets, we've tried to avoid printed run sheets, largely because when you're in the app, this is a big discussion point yesterday, and we absolutely get it, but when you're in the app, the user can go into jobs and then select the day tab at the top, and that will give them their jobs for the day in time and date order. So, sorry, I'm just updating. Home screen, okay. Unfortunately, there's none in that date, so not very helpful, but they will look exactly the same as this list here, but there'll be jobs for the day. So if the field user is using the app, they click on day, it gives them their run sheet, all of the job details, the address, location, the job value if it's necessary, and then they can carry on. In saying that, we've had a lot of requests for physical paper run sheets. So we are looking to add that into the feature list for you, so that the day or the week can be printed off. Goes against the grain, obviously, from a paperless point of view, but we understand the requirements. So have a look at the day view of the jobs for the subcontractors. You can lock the app down so they can only see the jobs that are related to them for that day. It probably does solve the issues, but we take on board the requirements, so we are going to add the ability to generate run sheets.
Next question is in relation to the management portal. Where in the management portal can you create an additional contact type?
Okay, we did show that this morning, I believe, but we'll do it again just in case it was missed. So again, we're in the CRM now. We go to contacts. Probably the quickest way to do it is just go into a contact. So what we're talking about here is these types. Okay, so you can categorize your customers into different categories. If we go into a client and just hit on the edit button, here you can see this contact type, got customer and ABC type. You just call it whatever you like. It gives you a little drop down of what you've got set up already, but then you can add a new one. And the example I used this morning was a VIP customer type, and that will then add that as an available list from then on if it's saved. I haven't saved. Make sure you save your changes as you're doing them. Yes, you can.
Contact both the customer and supplier.
Yes, you can. A contact can be both. No problem.
Another question from the webinar. When we edit customer details, for example, the email address in contacts, does the lead also update?
That's a good question. The lead is what we've received from Jim's. It will automatically create a contact at the same time, so you don't have to go and set them up as a contact. If you then adjust the contact, I can't remember. I'll have to have a look. I can't remember if that updates the detail in the lead as well. I suspect it doesn't. I think it's probably there as a separate unit.
Okay, we'll come back to that particular item in terms of updating the lead as well as the customer details. If there are no more questions from the previous session, yes, sir.
How do you change the customer from active to inactive?
How do you change the customer from active to inactive?
We'll cover that up as well in the contact section.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then we'll move to the next session, which is leads.
Okay, so I think it's time probably to jump across onto the app so you can actually see that, because that's what you're going to be using all day, every day in the field. So I want to really quickly run it through and show you how it's meant to work. You can see across the bottom of the iPad now, it's got that a new lead has been assigned. So when you receive a new notification from Jim's, a new lead, that notification comes in. Go into your leads section, and this lists the leads that you've received, all right? What we've recently added is these colored tabs on the right-hand side that show you what you've done with the lead so far and where it's up to. So you don't even actually have to go into it to see what's happened so far. So you can see the top one, nothing's happened. It's just sitting there as a cold lead. No contact's been made. I haven't done anything with it. That's the one that's just arrived in from Jim's, okay? Now, when the lead comes in, I can swipe from the left to the right, and now I can either call, SMS, or email that lead. If I swipe from right to left, I can convert that lead to a quote, convert it to a job, or convert it to an invoice just with one touch. If I want to go in and see the details of that lead, then I touch on it, and that opens the lead up, and here I can see the details. So the billing name, their email, mobile, work phone, and within each of those, I can swipe those left to right as well. So I can swipe from left to right to email, or to call the mobile if I'm using my phone, or the work phone. The details have come through from Jim, so whatever Jim's have presented will be in here. Let's close that at the bottom. Down the bottom of the page, you can see the history has started to build already. So the first note there is the actual fact that the lead has been created. I can add a note to the lead as a separate note by hitting the blue note button. Down the bottom, I can also use those same swiping actions are available. So I can turn that lead into a job or a quote or an invoice straight from here. I can also add details. So if I've spoken to the client, I want to add additional details. I can either type it in or hit the little microphone button to the left of the space bar. And now, as I speak, it will convert that text to add to the note detail. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but everything I just said was added to that note and added as a record. Just save that, and that's done. All right, so I've added a new note now to that lead. Other things, if I'm going to call the client, if you're using your phone, it will bring up the number. It's using your mobile phone records. So you hit call, dial the number. When it's connected, you speak. It brings you back into the note page. It's recorded the call duration down the bottom. It's not an exact location because it's recording the call and the note being added as one. But again, I can touch on that, use voice to text, and now record the details of the call that I've just made to the customer. That's been added now as a note and saved against the client file. Okay, so I'm building a history now of detail for what's happened to that record so far. And you can see that's now added to the notes at the bottom of history. Okay, so again, it's up to you how much of this stuff that you want to use. I'm just letting you know that it's all available, and everything you do is recording for you and adding into the history of that lead, and it's all being managed. Now, it does have what we call a sales pipeline, and a sales pipeline is managing a lead from start to finish. For the mowing guys, you don't need it. You just want to get there as fast as possible and give the guy a quote. For the more complicated sales processes where, and a really good example of this yesterday was nurturing a new franchisee through the program. Across the top, you can see that there's different filters. So I can see where my leads are up to in the pipeline stages. Like I say, for most of you, you don't need to worry about that. You're just going to have your leads, and you manage them quickly in the app and deal with it and move it on. So let's just have a quick look at that. And by the way, to add a new lead, there's a plus button down in the bottom right-hand corner. Click on that, and that opens up the new lead page, either from an existing customer or from a new customer. If it's existing, you just touch on the billing name, up they come, you can search it and find the one that it's for, touch it, that populates everything, and then you can fill in whatever additional fields you want to. You don't have to fill them all in. The more detail you put in, the more you know, but you don't have to. You just put enough in that you can recognize the deal, and that's job done. Okay, so that's receiving a lead from gyms or adding your own lead pickup. You call them, I think, using the plus button down in the bottom right-hand corner. We'll jump across now and see the same thing in the management portal and how that's managed. So I'm going to jump across to the management portal now, and I'm going to go to pipeline, which is the big button next to contacts, and that's where leads are managed. It's the leads pipeline. So every lead that's received will also be appearing in here. You can see there's that one that we just talked about and looked at the top, lead number 24. I can click in and see the detail. I can see the reference. All the contact details are there. If I have converted the lead to a job or an invoice, you can see in the field underneath that I can link to that job and invoice and have a look at it. Who it's been assigned to, so you can assign different leads to different people if you want to. And then within the action buttons, I can convert that lead to a quote, an invoice, or a job from the portal as well. So it's exactly the same functionality, just a different look and feel. And to make notes and add additional comments, I just hit the edit button. That brings up the lead, and I can make those same changes. Okay, so that's leads within the management portal. And again, you can just add a new lead by hitting the green button in the top right-hand corner, but the process is exactly the same. If you are using it as a pipeline and you have different sales stages to move it through to get that quote, then you set those up in settings. We did touch on that earlier. So go to settings and then CRM settings, and then pipeline stages. In the pipeline stages, you can set up the different stages and add the percentage likelihood of success. Okay? And I'll just show you how that works. So in this case, we've said that a cold lead is only 5% chance of it succeeding. When we categorize it as a warm lead, it moves 50. And when it's a hot lead, it moves to 75%. And then obviously, once you've won it, it becomes a quote or a job. Okay, so that's where you set those up. If we go back to the CRM now and look at the pipeline, and here, about halfway across the page is pipeline stage. So that shows you what stage that lead is up to. The next figure is the expected value. So that's the total value of the order or the deal or the invoice if you win it. And then the percentage success that we talked about just a minute ago in setting it up has been applied. So cold was only 5%. So the pipeline value of that deal, given where it is in the pipeline stage, is 5%, so it's $7.50. So even though the whole deal is worth $150, given where it's at in the process right now, its current value is $7.50. That's basically how it works. And so when you're looking at the totals of the pipeline at the bottom, the total value here right now is nearly $30,000, but its real pipeline value is $10,000, given that all of those different leads are at different stages. Okay? I don't want to spend too much time on it because for a lot of you it's completely irrelevant and you're not going to use it. But for those that are, there's a quick summary as to how it works. And you can filter them through their different stages and where they're up to from the main page, or you can go into the different tabs. These tabs will automatically create as you add new stages. Okay, so that's leads. And we're going to move from leads to quotes, but I just want to show you quickly back in the app how that's done, just so that you're familiar with the process, because this is really what it's all about. Okay, leads come in. I've swiped from the left and given them a call or sent them a text. Now they've agreed to do something, so I'm going to swipe from the right, and here's where I can convert that lead to either a quote, a job, or an invoice. Now the difference between those three, a quote will create a physical quote that you can send them. A job is, in our terminology, a visit. All right, you're going to go and see them and do a job. And attached to that job can either be a quote or an invoice. So a job is a visit. I'm going on site, and attached to that job is going to be either a quote or an invoice to do the job, or I can jump straight from that lead to create an invoice. Okay, so you've got that range of choices in terms of how you want that work to flow. It's possibly too flexible. A lot of the others you down a certain path, like it or not. We have to make it as flexible as possible, just because there's so many different ways, especially within gyms, that this sort of process plays. So my options are: one, change the lead stage. So in other words, move from cold to warm, for example, or from cold to lost, if you've lost the deal. Change the lead and move it to a quote. Convert it straight to a job and schedule it, or convert it straight to an invoice. They're the options. Now, if I look just down the page of these leads, you can see that the gray tag is the current lead stage, if you're using them. The blue job button means that you've converted that lead to a job. The red quote means obviously you've converted it to a quote, and the yellow one suggests that it's been converted to an invoice. If I go in and have a look at one of these, hopefully there's some notes in one that we can have a look. There we are. So there's the history of that lead all the way through. Okay, so it goes a long way back from when it was created, when it was converted to a quote, the quote converted to an invoice, the quote sent, the recipient opening it, quote then converted to an invoice, job being created, invoice being sent, invoice being paid, and then additional notes then being added even after the payment. So all of that is sitting in the new lead history. So at any point you can go back and see all of that information assigned to that lead. Okay. I think we're ready for questions now, specifically related to leads, and then we're going to move on to how we convert that lead to a quote and what the quotes look like.
Helen, question please.
Yeah, how do you, can you delete a lead that was added on a day for a duplicate?
Can you delete a mistaken lead or a duplicated lead?
You can. The way that we would encourage you to do it so you're not getting rid of it is move it to lost. Okay, so you're changing the status of it to lost. We are actually going to add a completely new section where you can just archive it. Because gyms is a little bit unusual in that sometimes you do physically want to delete a lead, especially if it's been reassigned to someone else. So we will add the option to delete it completely. You'll see that in the next few days, actually. Yep.
Any more questions from the floor? Yes, please.
What determines when a contact actually appears in the pipeline? So I've got contacts in there that I can't see in the pipeline.
Okay.
So what triggers it to actually go into the pipeline?
Yep.
What triggers a contact going into the pipeline?
Correct.
Okay. So if
I've got one, for example, that I've actually created an invoice for.
Right.
And sent the invoice.
Okay.
But it's not appearing.
Okay. So I'll take a step back and just explain the lead pipeline a little bit more. The idea of the lead pipeline is replace lead with opportunity. All right. You've got an opportunity to win new business, either with an existing client or a new client. Okay. So when a lead comes in from gyms, it's an opportunity to do some new work. It will automatically, by default, create a new customer at the same time, right? So you've got that contact already in your database, but it's there as a lead to be converted. So in the same way, you might have an existing customer that calls you and says, hey, Dave, I know you're doing my mowing every fortnight, but I've got a hedge that I need done next week. It's effectively a new opportunity. Whether you bother using the pipeline for that or not is up to you, but that's an example of how it can be used. So if that's the case, you would go into the contact and create a new lead for that contact. Okay? Contact has approached me. I'm going to create a new lead that I can then manage. In exactly the same way as a new lead has come in from gyms that is now to be dealt with. All right? Once you've converted that lead to a quote or an invoice, it's classed as one. So you've actually nurtured that lead through the process, and now I've won it. So the contacts aren't in your leads by default. If you've got a new lead for a contact, you have to put it in there. Does that make sense? Okay. How else can I?
Lead come through. So in terms of the building section.
Yep.
Some of them will be repeat clients.
Yep.
But the majority of them will probably be clients.
Yep.
So I'm in a contact here now.
Yep.
Within the contact, I can't see where to actually change the opportunity.
Create a lead there for them. Yeah. Okay. All right. We can jump into that. Yep, that's fine. So you've got an existing contact. So I'm going to go into the contacts button of the CRM at the top. I'm going to find my contact. ABC is the company that's called in. And then down in the activity section, there's a tab called Leads. Yes?
No, I've got jobs, forms, reminders, documents, photos, quotes, invoice, purchases.
Okay, have to adjust your setting there.
There's some tab to one of those.
No, it's
yeah, it looks different to what you've got.
Okay. It's a setting on yours. We'll adjust your setting so that's available. And then you hit the new lead button when you've got it. So it lists all of your current leads, and then you can create a new lead from there.
Okay, so the solution there is change the settings by the candidates.
Yep.
And then tap new leads. So
new lead from within the customer.
Your bill can handle that one offline.
So for every opportunity we need to do that. Is there any way to make it so that because if we get a lead come through, there's already an implied conversion rate.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen only.
So by default, when you lead comes in, it is already a potential lead.
Yes. Okay, so if it's come in from gyms, okay, it will already be sitting in your pipeline of leads. You won't have to do anything. So when you go into pipeline, just like that top one is, that any gyms leads will be sitting in there ready for you to action straight away, in both the portal and in the app.
Yep.
The lag time for that to be updated.
So the question is, what's the lag time from contact through to these leads?
I don't know the answer to that. You can force a sync for sure. I'll show you how to do that right now because we were going to touch on that before. If I just jump back into the app. So you go to the, should be. Yep. So to force a sync, I'm not sure how clearly you can see it on the app from there, but right above the jobs button is a grey arrow pointing down. You drag the whole page down until the arrow points up and then release it, and that will force the sync. You can see it's checking jobs, checking updates, and the black box at the bottom now is checking everything and updating everything that way, okay? It still doesn't mean that it's received the lead from Jim's at that point, so that's out of our control a little bit in terms of when Jim's has sent it, obviously, but that will populate the leads from that point.
Okay, we've got another question from the webinar. What is the recommended way to schedule a lead for a visit in order to quote? And that is prior to converting to a quote. So what's the recommended way to schedule a lead for a visit in order to quote?
So the way that will normally be done is when you go into the lead, these have popped in from Jim's, all right? They're all sitting there waiting, ready to action. Swipe from the right, convert to job, and that will arrange the scheduled visit. You can attach the quote at that point if you want to or not, but that is exactly how you receive the lead and convert it to a job. A job is a visit, if you think of it that way, and a visit can either be to go and do a quotation or to go and do the job itself with the invoice attached.
Okay. We've just got a comment or a question here from Matthew. I'm on the iPad using the portal, but I can't see the last two columns under the pipeline. Is that something that's limited on the iPad?
Sorry, what can't they see?
I'm on the iPad using the portal. I can't see the last two columns under pipeline.
Oh, they're looking at the portal in the iPad?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't know.
Don't know? Okay, Matthew, please send through a screenshot to infotech@jims.net and we'll try to sort that one out.
Just check their scrolling, see if they can scroll to the right to see that as well.
Okay, any more questions from the floor?
Yes.
On leads, Helen?
Can you attach more than one job to an existing lead?
Can you attach more than one job to an existing lead?
You get a lead, you've got to go and have a look at it and quote, which you do, and then you've got to go out and do the job. So it's still the one lead.
Yeah.
Multiple jobs.
So the way that you would do it in stages. So you convert the lead to the first visit, and once you've done that, you can then do whatever you like with it. You can reschedule it to another time and convert that quote to an invoice. But try and follow it as a process from do the first one first and then move it on to the second stage. But yeah, you can. Yep. And then if it is a recurring job, which we haven't touched on yet, if it's a recurring job where you're doing it every month or every week, which nearly all of you will be, we'll touch on how to do that and set it up as a recurring job as well.
Okay, we'll go through recurring jobs after. Next question, how do you enter a new postal pickup customer? Oh, that's a new lead, I presume.
Yes, that's a new lead. So we'll jump back. If you're doing it from the portal, then you click on the new lead green button in the right-hand corner. That will create the lead and set them up as a customer, a contact at the same time. If you're doing it from the app, then when you're in the leads page, so we'll go back to the main screen, hit leads, and then hit the blue button down in the bottom right-hand corner to create the new lead. If it's an existing customer, then you can go into the contact page. This lists all of your customers. You can go into first of all, you've got that same swiping action, so right to left, left to right. You can hit the new lead button from here. You can also add a note, quote, invoice, or job for an existing client straight from there. Or you can go in, have a look at the customer. This is the CRM page for the customer. So exactly like the CRM in the portal, nearly all of the same functionalities here are available in the app. So here I'm in the contact section. I can see the billing details. I can look at the different people in the sub-menu. I can also look at the different locations. If I click on the jobs, I can view all the active jobs for this customer. I can look at the notes, add new notes. Here are the leads for this particular customer. So again, I can hit the plus button and add a new lead for that customer from there. And then the last tab is the financials, quotes, invoices, and expenses under their different statuses. So I can look at open quotes at the moment. I can look at the quotes that I've won for this customer and the quotes that I've lost for this customer, all from the same page of the app. Okay, so the menu across the top, contacts, billing, people and locations, jobs, notes, leads, either open or closed, and financials, quotes, invoices, and expenses. So I think that question then, I've dragged it on, but how do I create a new pickup contact or lead from the app? A couple of options, go into leads, hit the plus button, creates a new lead. If it's an existing client, go into the contact, either swipe from the right when you've found them and create a new lead, or go in and hit the leads button and create it from there. So 3 or 4 different ways to do it within the app or the portal.
Any more questions from the floor, Marcel?
Just with the job, say you're a job that's a 2-day job, you've got one invoice, you book in 2 days, when you pipeline, you schedule and get 2 days mapped out.
Yep. So a job that's over more than 1 day, how do you schedule that? We'll come to that with scheduling.
We will, yes, we will, yeah. But the quick answer is we're not very good at that. Most of the jobs at the moment are designed to be done same day. So you can obviously run them over multiple days, but we are doing more functionality for longer term jobs. Yeah. Not just 2 days, but over months as well, where you might be going 10 times sporadically over 2 months, or you might be on the job every day for 2 months. So that additional functionality is coming.
Any more questions on leads? Check your list, Helen. All good? Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll move on to quotations.
Okay, so if we go back to the original screen where the lead originated, and we're going to convert that lead now to a quote. So I'm going to swipe from the right and hit convert to quote. And it brings up all of the quote fields in an editable format. So even your summary and your terms that have all come from your settings, they're all in there, but you can edit those and add information to them on a quote-by-quote basis. Okay, so just starting at the top, it's brought the client detail in already, the quote date. The quote expiry date is coming from your settings as well, how long the quote is valid for. The quote number will automatically generate for you, but you can override that and put your own manual one in. It tags the reference from the quote, where it originally came from, so you can see that there's gyms in this example. If the client has multiple locations already, then that location field, you just touch on that and it shows you the other locations. So although the contact has come to you from the billing address, if you know at this point what location the quote relates to, then you can enter it at this stage. The title has pulled through from the lead, but again, you can override that because that will come through whatever gyms have provided. You might want to reword that. And then down the bottom, we've got the line item detail. Now, unfortunately, this demo doesn't have very good line items, but all I need to do is touch on the item box and all of my line items will automatically appear, okay? So I just select it and it's job done. This one doesn't have any amounts or tax rates in it, but they're all preset if you've done it properly. So I don't need to touch the account, they're all there, and I don't need to touch the tax rate, it's all completely finished. If there's multiple line items, then I just hit add item, and I can have as many line items added into that quote as possible. All the summary and everything else will automatically update.
and that gives me the finished detail. Okay, when I look at the bottom, I just hit save. That saves the quote. I've got to put tax rates in. Like I say, you won't have to worry about this if you put your account detail in. All right, quote's now created. When I swipe to the bottom, I've got the different actions. What do I want to do with it? You can see at the history. So that's showing you the lead history to the quote stage. So I converted lead 24 to quote number 55 is the last note. I can add an additional note to it here. And then across the bottom, I can view a PDF of the quote. This will bring in your logos. It'll bring in your colors. So wherever it's blue in this one, it'll be your lawn mowing green or whatever the division color are and is. And that's, so I can just check that and make sure it's exactly what I'm expecting. And if it is, I can then hit email, and that will send the quote straight to the customer. If I want to receive a copy of it, someone asked about CCing copies of emails, I just tick the box, and that will automatically, at the bottom, send me a copy. So I'll receive a copy of that quote at the same time. But you can see it's pulled in all the information, the quote number, who it's for, the quote details, the payment terms, everything else is included automatically. But you can amend that in the settings to make it what you want. Hit send, and that will then send that quotation to the customer. If I've had a look and I'm not quite sure, then I can hit the edit mode at the bottom, and that's done. And now that I've converted it to a quote, I've also got those additional two options at the bottom where I can now convert this quote to an invoice or a job from the bottom of the page. Okay, so that's converting a lead to a quote from within the app. And if you have got your line items in there and your tax codes, if you've set those all up in settings, it's basically 3 touches to get it from a lead to a quote that's sent. All right, and that's really what we're trying to speed up. And the more we can speed that up for you, if we can get that down to literally 20 or 30 seconds to get it from a lead that you've received from Jim's into a quote that you've sent with all of the notes and everything else, time and date stamped, then hopefully that's a really good result for you. Okay, if I now go into my quotes tab, so I'm going back to the main menu, hitting accounts, and then selecting quotes. This gives me an overview of all of my current quotes within the app. All right, so just to keep you updated there, I've gone into the main menu, I've selected accounts, I've then selected quotes. First tab across the top, you can see there's 4 different tabs, all quotes, quotes that are open, quotes that are won, and quotes that have lost. Okay, so I'm in the all quotes at the moment, and this is a nice tool. If I want to quickly chase up any quotes, I can just jump into my open quotes. These are the ones that are currently valid, and again, swipe left to right to contact them, or swipe from right to left to convert it to something else. All right, if the quote has been lost, I hit the red button on the right-hand side, and that will tag it as a lost quote. The other way a quote can be lost is it can expire. So the 30 days validity or expiry can trigger, and that will automatically move the quote into the expired stage and put it into the lost category. It's not dead forever. If you can recover it, you just swipe from the right, hit the green open quote, and that will enable you to reopen it. If I hit that and open it, it gives you a new date that you want it to be valid for. So it's not going to be open forever. You can set the new date that you want that quote to be reopened for. Okay? So again, we've enabled these colored tabs so that you can really quickly see without even going into it what's happened with those leads. If you're on the front page here, I can scroll through and see the first one's open. The second one I've won. It was converted to an invoice with a job attached. The second one was won with an invoice, and so on. I can move through and see the status of every single quote that I've done, and then I can move into the filtered tabs and see the status of the ones that I've won here, for example, and what's been done with them. Okay, so again, to convert a quote to something else is super simple. It's just when you've found it, swipe right to left, convert it to a quote, to an invoice, a job,
or change its status to lost from here. If we jump across now to the management portal to see the same thing from the portal, there's a number of ways I can do it. I can go into the accounts tab to see all of my accounts. And then I go to the quotes tab within accounts. All right, so I'm in the CRM of the management portal now. I've clicked on the accounts tab. I've then clicked on the quotes section, and this will show me all of my quotes in exactly the same way. All of the same detail, the quote number, the reference, billing name, the title, the value if we've put one on it, when it was quoted, its current status. It's attached to is the lead, so I can click on the lead and see the original lead that this quote was generated from. If I've emailed the quote, it will now show the email date, so I can see when I emailed that quote to the customer from here. I can view the PDF of the quote from in here, or I can go in and edit the quote from here. And just like the filters across the top of the page of the app, if I want to just view certain quotes in their different statuses, then I can go through here and filter those quotes based on their current status. I can filter them. I can add additional filters with all of the other information that's available. So in other words, I want to do a report on every active quote that has come from this particular source. Okay, so I can do that here, or every quote that is over a certain value. All of those filters are available on the filters on the right-hand side. And once you've got the report as you need it, you can download that CSV and do whatever you like with it. Okay, so that's one way of creating a quote within the account. I've gone into the accounts tab. The other way to do it is to go into the contact itself. So here we are back in the contacts page. I go down to the quotes section of the portal. That shows me all of the quotes that I have done for this customer, and all of the same detail is there as we saw in the accounts page. And in the same way, I can filter the quotes for this customer from here, and I can add a new quote by hitting the button in the right-hand corner. When I do that, it brings up a modal, a quote modal that you'll be familiar with. It has the customer's details, the quote dates, everything else that you need to generate the quote. The summary and the terms are all pulling from your settings. You can add additional line items from here in exactly the same way. Save it, view the PDF, make sure it's what you want, and in PDF mode, you can then email the quote straight from the portal. Okay, so that's quotes, and the quote line items will all be pulling from your invoice line items, so everything that you've got available in your invoices will also be available in the quote. Okay, I think that's it for quotations.
Okay, we'll open up the floor to questions. I think we had a question over here first.
The question, when do you do the quoting stage? I think it's also very relevant to other divisions like billing section, where we have to go out. We need to get so after taking photos, we need to attach that to the quote, and amongst that, to other documents, if we need to. I was asked, how do I do that? How do I match other documents and photos to the quote?
So the question is, how do you attach documents, photos to the initial quote, and that's relevant for pest control, building inspection, things like that?
Okay, so there's a number of ways to do it. When you create a job, which we're going to show up, converting a quote to a job, and a job, as you remember, is a visit. Okay, you're going on site. You can add a text to that job so that when you're on site, you've got whatever attachments you to view. So it could be agreements, it could be site plans, it could be basically anything attachment, so that you've got that to hand when you're doing the job. If it's something like a pre-inspection agreement that's been sent and comes back from the customer, that also can be added as an attachment, but it'll also be sitting in the customer file as well. So that's another way of doing it. We are adding, and we'll cover this off in the development this afternoon, but we are adding the ability to add attachments to quotes from within the quote section as well. So it's more meant for extended terms and conditions, or for agreements in the building inspection and pest markets in particular. So every quote that goes out can automatically, if you wanted to, include an agreement for them to sign. But you can also attach marketing material and anything else as well. So there's a couple of ways of doing it, either in the job. All good?
Webinar, we hope you're back. Okay, so next question is, what does quote to a job mean? What does quote to a job mean?
Okay, that's one that we sort of covered off briefly earlier, but if you look at jobs as visits, so I have quoted the customer, they've accepted it, now I'm converting that job into a visit. I'm going to go and do the job, like. So once the quote has been accepted, I want to convert that quote to a job. So to do that, go back to the app. Quote's been accepted, swipe from the right, convert to job. And that brings in all the job details. I don't want to cover this too much because we're going to cover jobs after lunch, but that's exactly how the page looks. What type of job is it? If you've set up your job types, you can select it. It's already pulled in all the customer information. It's got the quote added to the job already, so you can see the quote there. I can go in and view that if I want to, quote 55. It's got the forms and the safety forms attached because of the job type that I've selected. So that is physically how we then convert a quote to a job. And down the bottom, I'm just going to schedule the date and time. If it's a recurring job, I can set up as a recurring job from there at the same time, but we'll get into the detail of that. So I swipe the quote from right to left to convert it to a job visit. It's brought in all the details that I need, including the quote added as an attachment. And if I want to, I'll just show you quickly. If I know already that it's going to be a recurring job, I just click on the recurring box, and now I can do it. It's going to be a recurring job every 1 month or every 3 weeks or 1 year, whatever you want it to be. It's very flexible, big frequency in the interval to set it how you want. And down the bottom, it gives you a nice little summary of what you've just selected. So I selected every 3 weeks. So the recurring summary at the bottom says I'm going to create a job every 3rd week, starting from the 10th of November. Here's the next 3 in the schedule, and the next job will be on the 1st of December. Okay, so with basically 2 clicks, I've set that recurring profile from converting a quote to a job. All I needed to do is add in the date and time and set up as recurring with a couple of clicks, job done.
Just another question related to that in the webinar. Can you add extra information on the quote form, such as suggestions, recommendations, or comments?
Yep, it's a really good idea, and it will be added to the quote feature in the November release as well. So we've had a lot of requests for that. Just to summarize it, you've prepared your quote, you've gone out, but you've noticed that there's something else, or the quote's normally, the job's normally $55, the invoice is normally $55, but today you're invoicing $75, and you can put a one-off comment into the invoice to say, you know, the grass is super long, or we did the hedges as well today, or whatever it might be. So it's the ability to add a one-off comment into the invoice. You can currently do it as just a blank line item. It's not very neat, so we are adding that one-off comment into both quotes and invoices.
I have a couple of questions from the floor, please. Yes, sir.
Just a question, the Jim's signature, is that attached on the email?
Jim's signature is attached to the email.
The email will automatically pull in your logo and contact details, not the Jim's one, but your franchisee details. So whatever.
Basically, it's just mine, your email address, phone number, and that's it.
No, it brings in the color logo in the actual email content itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you set it quote,
Yep.
when we did that, you actually got the splash and stuff that you use.
Yep.
Is it using that?
No, it won't be using that footer. We haven't received that. No, so it won't. But it does bring in the logo and the colors at the top of the email. Yeah. Yes.
So
if you've designed a custom email footer, that won't currently be showing.
So the question is, does it bring in the current slash that they're using? The answer is it only brings in the logo and other contact details.
You can adjust it. Sorry, just to answer that, you can go in and create your email footer and bring that in, but it won't be there by default. It's one of the settings. We can cover it again. Yep. Yeah, just go to settings. Settings.
Sharing with folks at home.
CRM settings. Yep. Emails. And then the email footer. So that's the standard content, but you can bring in whatever additional images or whatever else you need to do to add in underneath that, and that should work fine. I believe so, yeah. I know everybody's different and there's slightly different rules, and then you've got different links and that sort of thing, so I actually can't comment on the capability of all of that, but we will test that if you're having any problems. Okay, so that was settings, CRM settings, and then the email tab, and then the option there is email footer. Yep, so if you've adjusted your user profile for that, that will bring in that detail. Phil will show you how to do that.
So let me just repeat that question. So the discussion there was, does it bring in the personal details? If it's in users profile, just drop that one down again, please. Users, view users.
Oh, sorry. Settings.
Settings,
user profile.
Yeah. That's your personal details. If that's all included in there, we'll put it into the invoice on the quote. Alan, question please. You forgot. There was another question at the back. Any more questions? Yeah.
A job, if you're going out to do a quote, you don't create a quote or invoice before you're going out. You don't need to do that to create a job.
No, you don't. No.
So repeat that question again, so we can get it.
You don't have to do a quote or invoice to go out to create a job.
You don't have to create a job. You have to create a quote.
So a job doesn't have to have either a quote or an invoice attached. You're arranging the visit, and then you can add a quote or an invoice at that point.
Okay, next question, please. When quoting, can you retain quotes after they've been invoiced?
Yes, you can. So all of the quotes that you generate will always be retained in the quotes section of both the CRM and the app.
If a quote is either lost or expired, and then some months later the client comes back and wants another quote, can you resurrect the original lost or expired quote and update that?
Yes, you can. So, sorry, just touch on that. If we go back to the quotes page, look at our lost quotes. You can see the first number here of expired. Swipe from right to left and reopen the quote by hitting the green open quote button. Normally, well, always it'll ask you the date that you want to revalidate it rather than just have it open forever. So you just put the new date in that you want it to apply for, but that will reopen exactly the same quote. Alternatively, you create a new quote for the customer if you want to.
Next question from the webinar, sorry, Helen. Question is, can you show us how to import all of our existing items or services from Xero into the app for use in quotes?
Okay, well, there's nothing to show really because it'll do it automatically. When you go to settings and then into CRM setting, it will first default to the invoice section. The first question is accounting software. When you click on that, select Xero. Okay, so just to go where we came, I went to settings, selected CRM settings. It opens all of the CRM settings, but it defaults to invoices as the first one. The first section of the invoices page is accounting software, and then I select Xero. You can see underneath there that QuickBooks and MyOb are on their way. When you select Xero, it will take you to the Xero login page. You authenticate. It will then start the import. It will import all contacts, both suppliers and customers, all line items, all tax codes, all historic invoicing detail. Basically, absolutely everything you need will be done without any further touch. Allow about 15 minutes for that complete process. It does it in 4 sweeps to bring all of that historic data and information across. If you trigger it and go into CRM contacts, you'll see that they have started straight away. But if you just allow 15 minutes for the process, it will give you a warning notification up the top that it's in process and when it's finished. But allow about 15 minutes for the full import. And then when you go into your items sections, they'll be populated already straight from Xero.
When I create a quote, the tax type is always no tax, even though in my item it's just, running income. So I always have to cancel go in and change that to tax inclusive. Is there any way of me being able to set that so it's off to tax inclusive?
Yep.
Need to set tax as default inclusive.
Yep, we'll come and help you with that. It is just a setting, so we'll get it so it's right for you.
And that's a settings issue.
Yep.
Can you create multiple quotes per job?
Multiple quotes per job. Normally, once you've done the job, it's post-quote time. So you do the quote first, and the quote's converted to a job. In terms of generating additional quotes from a job, technically you can. If you haven't done it already, you can. So when you go into jobs, if you haven't already created a quote for that job, then you can create a quote from the job visit. Normally it's done the other way around. So you do the quote first, you win it, and then you go to do the job. But you can add a quote to a job. You can't add multiple quotes to a job.
You cannot add multiple quotes to the job. Okay. One second. I think we'll take a question here from Marcel.
Yes, probably one of the divisions that have a bigger job.
Right.
Multiple days, monthly pay on stage 2 of the job.
Yep.
Someone in front of our backyard or whatever for us to work, so it would be a good feature to have.
Yep. Okay. So the only way, obviously, we would consider those as 2 different jobs. You can get the same result, not quite as perfect in terms of assigning it all to the one job number, but front would be one job, back would be the other. You can quote separately and do them at different times. They both can be assigned separately. The only issue with it is they are 2 different job numbers. But you get the same result.
So the suggestion from Marcel was have phase 1 and phase 2 of a large job. Matt's response was they are treated as separate jobs. Any other questions?
Job and we have multiple locations, separate quotes for different locations.
Yes, you can.
One job, multiple locations, separate quotes. Yes, you can. Okay, that's good. Next question. With the November release of the app, so the various modifications, will we be notified how to update the app and how?
The perfect scenario is in your phone settings, have it on auto update. Okay, so that whenever we release a new app, it will update itself automatically. You can go into the App Store and look at the update section, and it'll show you what's to be updated if you haven't done it. But the perfect result for us is just have us on auto update. So whenever we release it, you just update automatically. You don't even know it's automatically there. But we will add the update note into the update section in the help menu, so you can see what the update was and what it does.
Excellent. Question from Sandra. How do you attach photos to an emailed invoice? We may cover this in invoicing. For example, before and after. Some clients require at least 4 photos and sometimes documents attached.
Short answer is that you can't add photos to the current quotes or invoices if you're using the CRM invoicing. If it's critical, we would break and create the quote and invoice form, which will enable you to take before and after photos, add signatures, add drawing tools, whatever. If you can hold off until the 30th of November, photos, attachments, and signatures are being added to both quotes, invoices, and purchases or expenses. So you can take photos of receipts and have signatures added to those as well.
Any more questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Yes, just wanted to ask regarding once we have done an invoice and that off to the customer, for some reason we need to make an amendment to it. How do we do that?
Amendments to the invoice and editing the invoice. I think we'll cover that in invoice. I'll cover that this afternoon in invoice. Yes, sir.
In relation to the auto update, the beneficial be for a lot of things, but we have an app in our system which we can do very compatible with the iOS platform all the time. We have that verification done before we do that. So that would present a risk for our guys. So building inspection doesn't definitely have to be a manual bringing in.
Okay, for building inspection, it's a manual update that you're recommending.
Would not recommend we go to auto update.
Of the reporting software you use? Oh, okay. Right, okay. Okay.
A question here from the webinar. Can you create an email signature and can it have a particular logo? For example, the 20-year logo embedded in it as well. So that's an addition to the current import. So I'm presuming that that's a 20-year logo.
Yeah, so we demonstrated that earlier. So that question's been answered.
So you can have 2?
No, you can only have 1 email footer. I think they're asking, can you customize it? Is that the question?
I don't know if it's customizing. Would anyone have a better guess on that one? Maybe Dale, if you want to re-question that one, and we'll ask it again in a moment.
Well, would it be attaching my JPEG, the bottom of your email signature?
Yeah, I think that's the same as this gentleman's asking for. That you've got a flashy email footer. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the capabilities of that are, so we'll have to do some testing, or I'll talk to the support guys on that. But you go to settings, CRM settings, emails. The email footer is the first tab there, and then you can add additional, hopefully, images there as well. But we'll test that and come back. Okay.
So you believe that you can only import 1 image from your user profile?
I copied the footer of my email and pasted it straight in. I didn't import anything else, just copy and paste.
Put it straight copy and paste into the user profile. We had a question over there from the floor.
Yeah, I wondering, more in regards to Jimbo and Emmett, is getting all of our previous invoices imported into the system.
Previous invoices for warranty out of Jimbo into Formitize.
Yeah. Can we come back to that? I can't actually remember the invoice status for Jimbo, unless Phil can.
We'll come back to you online. We'll take a note of that question and come back to you. Next question. If Xero is already set up and I change an item in Xero, will that update to Formitize?
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. More specifically, how far away is my old QuickBooks? That's at the end of the year. We'll talk about that this afternoon. At the end of each financial year, and after the financials and tax are done, we start a new financial year in MyOb, a part of which is backing up all of the data. It means MyOb only has data that's current on our computer, not a year's worth of data. When MyOb is available on Formitize, should we then import the new MyOb data as part of the process so that MyOb and Formitize match?
I'll leave that one to the bookkeepers and accountants, but we don't. We carry all information forward, so there's no reason why that should change, I don't think. The statuses of everything will remain, but you best check that one out with your accountant or bookkeeper.
Okay. Check that one with the accountant, so Formitize brings everything across. Can you delete a lead from Jason?
Yes, you can. We're going to make that a little bit more obvious because traditionally we've treated it as a closed or lost lead, but we are, especially for gyms, going to enable it to be deleted completely. It won't be deleted as in written off forever. It's going to be called inactive. So you'll have active leads and inactive leads that you've effectively deleted, but you can recover it if you need to.
Okay. Another question here. Is there a way to revise the quote? If additional work needs to be done or added, can you revise the original quote?
Yes, you can. So you can do that either in the portal or in the app. You just go into the quote, hit edit. You can make whatever changes you want to, increase the pricing, add additional line items, resave and resend. No problem.
When a quote is invoiced, can you turn it back to a quote?
What you would do is more likely is delete the invoice or close it and go back to the quote which will still exist. So we don't delete the quote. It's like a quote book. Whether you've converted the quote to a lead or not, to an invoice or not, it'll still be sitting in your quote book effectively or your quote page. So you don't have to convert it back to the quote. The quote already exists.
Yeah, so quote is retained. Question. You can delete the invoice though, like if it's done now or whatever?
Yeah, you can definitely delete the invoice.
You can delete invoices. Second, please. Just pay this invoice, just send a copy of it to the receipt. Sending a receipt.
Yep.
We'll do that in invoice.
We'll do it in invoice. I'll show you how to do that. So you can take payments through the app, credit card payment through the app, or use your own credit card gateway, but you can record the payment. And when you record that payment, you can automatically send a paid invoice back to the customer.
Just some clarification from Dale. Thank you, Dale. We're allowed to use both the mowing logo as well as the special Gyms Group 20-year service logo in our ordinary emails. So 2 logos. We understand, can we test to see if this can be done in Formitize?
Yep, good question. We will test that and come back to anyone that's interested in that. If a copy and paste work, which I was hoping it would, but I didn't want to say that until we tested it, then that's the perfect scenario. If that's not the case, then we'll let you know how to do it.
Any more questions from the floor before we go to the PowerPoint and share with folks at home? All good? Yep. Question at the front?
My question relates to reporting, and it would be the same for all divisions. But as a regional franchisor, we're interested in performance of our franchisees. does Formitize have scope for pulling information so we can see conversions, activity, income, whatever it might be, on a regional basis, looking at our team?
So the question is, can franchisors see the data of franchisees for efficiency and reporting performance?
As a report,
As it's currently built, gyms, neither the franchisors nor the group can see anything. We've had discussions with gyms, including Jim himself. He has said that he has no intention ever of seeing any franchisee financials on a franchisee basis. However, in terms of the group, and I agree with it, obviously a lot of franchisees are very protective about Big Brother and who can see what, and I get that as well. So none of that type of detail will be visible on an individual franchise basis. However, it's in everybody's interest, the franchisees and the franchisors and the divisions and the group, as far as I'm concerned, I think everybody is, that sort of statistics become available so that people can start to get a real feel for what's going on, and lead conversions and how quickly they're being dealt with, and activity and that sort of thing can only help in the training of both existing and future franchisees. So I believe in the future, elements of what's happening will be reportable on a divisional basis, let's say, but the individual financials of a franchisee, Jim has no interest in ever seeing that, and that's considered to be their business. So that's absolutely the direction that we're going. I think Formitize can add a lot of value into that type of reporting on a number of different levels.
Perhaps restricted by the consent of a franchisee.
Absolutely.
Having to share that information.
Yep, perfect.
So just back up from Jim's group side, I've had the same discussion with Jim. No interest whatsoever in financials. There's no discussion at the moment in terms of development, but in future, it would be interesting to see people's performance and to be able to support people with further training. So I think that's the key issue. I'm going to ask.
There's lots of cool stuff, and it's kind of more bigger picture stuff. There's lots of cool stuff you can get out of that type of information. You know, what's the typical customer for a lawn mowing franchise look like? How old are they? What regions are they coming from? If you start to understand that on a big picture, then that can direct where gyms spend their advertising money and their marketing money and that sort of thing. It's the sort of statistics that you can really get a lot of value out of if you've got it. Yep.
I'm going to ask Matt to swap over to the PowerPoint now for the questions on notice. From the webinar, we have received a number of questions about deleting invoices, taking FPOS capabilities. We'll talk about that this afternoon in invoicing and accounting packages. We've answered a number of these. So can I modify the quotes? Yes. Can I delete the quotes? Yes. Can I print the quotes? We haven't answered that one yet.
So to print a quote, go into the PDF view, and the print option is available. But you need to be in the PDF view of that to do that.
Question from the webinar. If we had a large job and wanted to invoice twice for the same job, instead of making it two jobs, can we create a second job under the same lien and invoice twice?
So you can certainly generate new invoices, and you can add the job detail in there. So it's a sort of a workaround, because you wouldn't have to go through the whole lead to quote to invoice stage. You've already done that. So once the invoice is generated for that customer, you can just go into the customer and create new invoices as many times as you want.
So you can create as many invoices as you want, and it's still the one. Next question. What happens if I do a manual quote? Do I need to enter it into Formitize? Depends what your bookkeeper is telling.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's up to you. From our point of view, we would encourage you to put anything that you do manually into Formitize as well, so that it's all in one place. You've got a record of everything in one place. At the end of the day, it's your decision. There might be things that you don't want in the system. If you want to just keep on paper, that's up to you. But from my point of view, from your bookkeeper or accountant's point of view, they'd probably rather have everything in the one system for consistency in reporting.
Next question, can I do a quote with just the total on it?
Yes, so we talked about that earlier. It's a little bit of a shortcoming in this current quoting system that if you're pulling in your individual line items, it generates the total. The workaround for that is to just do a custom line item, call it whatever you like and put the total in, so it's not showing those individual line item details. With that, you can do whatever you like.
So, with that too, you get the lead, like if you put a value of say $10 on each item, you just get rid of the $10 and go zero.
You can.
And then you line to
yeah, no, absolutely. You could do that as well. Yeah, for sure. So the line items can have a default value, but you can overwrite them on a per quote or per invoice type. So that's one way of doing it, and that shows the content of the quote. Some people don't want them to see all of that. They want to show the line item, know the line items themselves, for example, but not have the quote, the customer see the details. So, but it's a really good way to do it. Either way, you could do it. Yeah.
some customers want to see what they're getting, they don't care what price.
Yep. And you might not want to show them that either, that breakdown too. Yep.
So the question is, can you default or zero out the line items, subtotals? And the answer is yes, and just provide a total. Any more questions from the floor? Any more questions from the webinar?
We do the bottom one. Can I modify the quote once I've completed it?
Yeah.
We've done that? Yeah, okay.
Question from the webinar. You use job as a visit. From a lead, you go to job or visit the site and quote to job or visit to do the job and then invoice. So you go from lead to job to quote to visit to do the job to invoice. So I know you're very flexible and you can do a number of things. Can you just give us a couple of those scenarios again, please?
So was there a question there, or was that just confirming how it can work?
I think it's a statement,
okay.
But currently you use job as a visit.
Yes.
In terms of the terminology.
Yes.
But currently the flow that our webinar friends' understanding is lead to job, which is visit the site, and then quote, and then job to actually perform the job, and then invoice. So I think there may be a bit of a confusion around the word job.
Yep. That's right. And it is confusing because different people use it in different ways.
Maybe share your screen with folks at home.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
You've got to do the quote before you set the top.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it depends on the division. You often have to visit before you can even quote.
You do the quote when you do the job. You need to go do the job before you can do the quote.
Yeah.
Maybe there should be an extra one there, like site visit.
Yeah, site visit. Maybe it's a terminology issue.
It is exactly that. It's terminology and just making sure that we understand it. So if you substitute the word job for visit, it probably helps to get that terminology to what you're used to. And a visit can be to do a quotation, or it can be to do the job itself. And when you do the job itself, the invoice can be attached to it. All right. So it is probably just getting your heads around that terminology and the way that it's done. But when I touch on lead and I convert that to a job, I'm converting it to a visit. If I've done the quote already, the quote will be attached to the visit. If I've done the invoice already, the invoice will be attached to the visit. All right, and I don't want to get too much detail of that because we'll show you in the stage after lunch exactly how that works. But there might be times where you'll have a lead, you'll ring the customer, they'll tell you exactly what they want. You can then, don't even need to do the site visit, you just want to generate the quote and send it to them. So it's got to have that flexibility as well.
Question from the floor. So, the thing in my views are, one of the things has to be to start invoicing from here until that's integrated, right? So, if I'm creating a quote and creating a job, can I then, like activate it or tick it off that it's been done without putting an invoice?
Absolutely.
Yep. And tick off the job completed without performing the invoice because you're a MyOp user and it's not yet integrated to MyOp.
Yes, 100%. So the quoting and the invoicing tools are optional. You can just use it to schedule your jobs, set up your recurring profile, know exactly when all your jobs are for the year, go and do the job, sign it off as completed, and then do your invoicing completely separately.
Can you show us how to do that?
Yes, we're going to do jobs and invoicing after lunch with the scheduler.
Next question from the webinar. Can we discount additional services on a quote if the customer accepts multiple services during the same visit? Can we discount additional services on a quote if the customer accepts multiple services during the same visit?
Yes, you can. So when you go into the quote, there is a discount field in the line items of that quotation. So at any point you can edit it and change, either change the amount or put a discount percentage in to do it for you. So that can be done at any stage through the process.
On my iPad, I cannot see how to add the job duration, i.e. 1 hour or 6 hours. So on the app, how do you add job duration?
Okay, we cover that off in jobs. I'll go through the whole thing.
Okay, cover it off in jobs. Excellent. Any more questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
This is a quick question regarding doing either a quote or invoicing. When I sit at home and start typing that up on the pad, it'll give the notification of where I've done that reporting rather than the location of the job itself. And when you print it onto PDF or the email, there it says the suburb of where I did the report. How do I not do that or show that?
So on the iPad, doing the quoting at home, it shows your home location rather than the location where you actually did quotes. Yep.
So what we're talking about here is in the pest control reports in this case, which is a different part of the solution, but I can quickly show you. It's designed so that when you're in the field, you don't have to enter the address. You just hit fetch, and it grabs your current location and automatically populates it. When you're doing it from home, if you're doing it with the app, it'll obviously default to your home address. So you just don't use that. You just type in the customer's address instead of using the fetch button. There are two elements that we're talking about. I don't want to confuse everybody by going into forms too much, but if I just quickly show you, if we go into forms and view submitted forms, this is for anyone that's using additional forms for the solution. It will automatically grab the location of every form that's been submitted. That's different to what's going to show up in the PDF report. So you can see the location submitted is actually where the app was at the time, but that has no relevance to what's going to show up in the customer's finished PDF report. That's a field that's in the form. Okay, so they're two different things. One is where did I do the job, and the other one is the customer's address. So we'll take you through that individually if you want to see how we separate it.
Just a last question to Matt at Jim's Mowing on the webinar. You've got an issue with scrolling. If you go into the GoToWebinar control panel where you type questions, can you please give us a little more detail and we'll try to help you with that one. Any more questions before we close the morning session? Going once, going twice. Folks on the webinar will be starting again at 1:30 sharp. Please log into the Friday PM link in order to be able to access this afternoon's webinar. If you've got questions, comments, insults, abuse, please type them into the question box in the GoToWebinar control panel. Thank you very much. We'll see you this afternoon at 1:30. Thank you.